What does this have to do with friends? I think this is naive. I'm sorry.
Why is it not Putin's failures or Russia's failures to avoid war? Why is all of the agency placed on the victim here, the defender, right? These are the kinds of people that our country is supposed to exist for, and we failed. How are you as an American spread the propaganda pieces about Zelensky and his wife are shopping in New York? Where are Putin's videos of him being on the front line? Zelensky is like daily filming videos in places that people don't even know if it'll be under Ukrainian control in 2 or 3 days. Places that are actively being sieged or bombed.
I have never talked to Vladimir Putin, but I have a feeling he is ready because Donald Trump is ready. I hope you are ready.
Everybody's ready for peace but you, Zelensky. What's the Lex counter to that?
There were waves of Russian on the first day who said he ran away. I had to go out into the street. I left the office and went outside. I had to do this because I was showing that this was no green screen, to show that it was the street, not some digital manipulation. I mean, I did these things. Then I touched various objects. Now, people might think that these are small things, but I was actually showing that I was in a real place. All of this had an impact. I was absolutely sure of my actions. And then I spoke to the Russians. I addressed Russians. I really did. And then only after that, I gathered. It was the first day when I invited all of the journalists here, wasn't it? To the press center in this building. I talked to journalists. I asked them not to leave because we needed weapons. At that moment, they were handing out rifles to people. And for me, journalists and media platforms were essential voices. There were various journalists from different countries here, and they were essentially stuck. And I asked them for contacts, those who had access to Russians, Belarusians, Kazakhs who understood everything, the same information. And I spoke to them. And I spoke to them and spoke in Russian. I told them, you must stop Putin. This is terrible. This is horror. This is war. You must stop him. And if you stand up now, if you speak out, and if you go out into the streets, this was very important. I spoke to them in Russian to show them that there was no problem and that all of these pretexts were made up. This is why it's so painful to talk about the Russian language too, because look, if the person does not want to listen, they will not listen no matter what language we speak.
I disagree with you here. I think and hope that many people in Russia will hear us today.
They blocked YouTube recently. Are you aware of this? In their country.
I know. And I simply guarantee that this conversation will travel fast on the internet. Everyone will hear you. They will hear you. Including the president of Russia will hear you. This is why I have hope.
He is actually deaf, even if he speaks to you. He is deaf by his very nature. Do you understand the difference? For instance, when you talk to Musk, you're talking to...
Oh, Jesus.
Talk to Musk. You're talking to an innovator, a scientist about rockets. You talk about how to save on costs and how they land. And on the other hand, Putin doesn't launch rockets to save money, but to kill people.
Is toxic positivity a thing? Because that's what I get from Lex in this convo. It's not like toxic positivity. You can be positive. I don't think you can be toxically positive. It's just sometimes it feels like people are being naively positive or obfuscating or equivocating. I think that's the issue. You can't just be glazing one side so fucking hard and then attacking the other side so fucking hard and then just saying like, oh, hope and love and hope and love. Okay, well, like, where's the criticisms for Putin? I never heard that Russia had blocked YouTube. I didn't even know that. Has Lex complained about that in any of his episodes? Maybe he has. I don't know.
People, do you think you can talk to Putin about technology? Your guys were interviewing him, and he told them about tribal history. Imagine a Russian man in his country listening to him. You know what Musk is about? Technology, Mars, artificial intelligence. And this guy, Putin, is standing there bare-assed, pontificating about tribes. You've got to understand. You think that when you do interviews, like Mr. Tucker, who did an interview there, that you're about to make them friends. How could you? What does this have to do with friends? He's different. He is simply different.
But it's still necessary.
A mammoth stands before you.
By the way, I must say that when you said bare-assed, it was not translated. Could the interpreter please translate?
This is so that you can understand.
Now he explained everything to me. I understand.
Yeah? That's great.
I fully understand.
That's
anyway,
great.
But we still need to talk.
One should always speak with someone who listens. And you must speak when you know that this will benefit you, bring peace and calm to the world. not the other way around. I love President Trump's message when he speaks. I think that we share a position on peace through strength. That is very important. It means that if you are strong, you can speak. And we need to be strong. And Ukraine has to be strong enough. Otherwise, what for? So he, like Voldemort, who must not be named. Yes, he's like Voldemort. He thrives, subsists, and lives on being subjectivized. Instead of isolation, he is offered to step out into the light. He's darkness personified, and you offer him, as it were, to be subjectivized. Why? There's only one reason. Fear. And you say, we need to talk. Listen, we need to be in a strong position and not talk, but end the war. Yes, it is possible through dialogue. We're not opposed to it. You just need to be in a strong position to make the other person want it. Do you think he wants to end the war? That's what you suggested? I think this is naive. I'm sorry. With all due respect, it's naive to think he wants to finish the war. There's something we need. I think that President Trump not only has will, he has all these possibilities, and it's not just talk. I really count on him. And I think that our people really count on him. So he has enough power to pressure him, to pressure Putin, not into wanting to stop it. No, he will not want to pressure him to actually stop it. That is the difference. Don't rely on his will, Putin's will to stop. You won't see it. That's what I think. Sorry.
No, sorry, I interrupted you first. But what I would want, I do have what some might call a naive dream of you sitting down with Putin and Trump and negotiating a deal about.
I had this like fear that when I went to debate Finkelstein, that Finkelstein and Rabbani would be bringing up all these like really deep historical events and I wouldn't know anything. And I would just have to like appeal to like very broad, vague things because I just wouldn't be able to keep up in the convo. That was like my fear. Is this just going to be like Zelensky saying something particularized and something specific to Putin or a specific criticism, and then Lex responding broadly with hope and love every single time? Is that what this whole thing is going to be? Remember, this guy's read tons and tons and tons of books. Countless books, he said, countless. There should be a plethora of deep, deep history that one could draw from to make, even in recent history, in terms of Ukrainian-Russian relations, post-91, pre-91. Okay, let's see.
Might call a naive dream of you sitting down with Putin and Trump and negotiating a deal about a ceasefire and together finding a path to long-term peace. And I think this requires strength, requires negotiations. There are a lot of carrots and sticks here that can be used to make a real deal. And Trump is very keen on making a deal and ready to negotiate.
Can I ask you a question?
What kind of deal? What kind of sticks? What kind of carrots? This is probably like, how many hours through this interview until Zelensky is like, I thought the first days of the war were the scariest, the hardest days of my life, but it's actually enduring this. It's actually not losing my shit in this conversation right here. Like what? It's okay. 53 minutes. Okay. Maybe we'll get to somewhere.
Yep. I just really want you and I to be on the same page.
Yes. What is it going to be? Criticisms of like, can we please stop just saying peace and love for Putin, please?
It's very important to be in the same information space.
Yes.
Extremely important.
Not living different alternate realities.
Let's talk a bit about the ceasefire.
Okay. Specifics.
Let me describe the situation to you.
Okay.
In December 2019, in Normandy, in Paris.
It's a conversation. This is why you don't want to watch it, because all you want to see is them debate shit. No, what I want to see is a substantive conversation. And I just want to see it. But I understand now what you're saying. Nobody actually wants to see it. You just want to see people that have impressive titles just sit here and just blah, 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 back and forth. That's all you want to see. You just want to see random, and then you can come away being like, yeah, I listened to the president of Ukraine and an American podcaster say these things. It's like, okay.
Paris, at the Élysée Palace, Macron, Merkel, Putin and I agreed on the ceasefire. The US wasn't there. And this, by the way, was a weak point of the meeting. If you'd like, we can later discuss why they weren't there. It's a security guarantee thing in general. It's Germany's position, etc. We agreed on an exchange of hostages, an all-for-all exchange. We made a deal to exchange everyone for everyone. I think you know that. And there was also a meeting that lasted many hours, a meeting where we made a deal with him. Everyone was tired. It was just the two of us in the end. And I proposed a ceasefire. By the way, no one in Ukraine believed. Few believed in the ceasefire, and he wanted troop withdrawal. I calculated that if there were a withdrawal of troops from the line of contact the way Russians proposed, it would take 20 years. I proved it to him, just in terms of time. Square kilometers, namely the length of the line of contact or delimitation line. And we agreed on what I told him, that it will not work out. But I had many points because I was deeply involved in the issue. I was involved very deeply. It's my thing in general. If I start doing something, I can't stand there like that guy I spoke about with my ass out, you know? I must be dressed. I must be prepared. I must be prepared better than anyone in front of me. You do sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
I practiced for many years, and we know what fights are like, what boxing is, what Thai boxing is. This is what I did, and I loved it very much. When you step into the ring, you...
Destiny, when people have middle ground and understanding for each other, there is no... I hope that when we do our civil war and shit, that your family is like being put up for whatever guillotine blocking, and there's like 7 of you, and they're trying to figure out like how many of you should kill, and one side wants to kill your whole family, and you're here like, oh no, like I don't want any of my family to be killed, and some guy comes up and they're like, the middle ground, actually, we're just going to kill 3.5 of your family members, and you're like, oh my god, bro, wow, what a middle ground. That's so peaceful. Good for you. Was it King Solomon, where there were 2 women that were arguing over a child that both claimed belonged to them, and King Solomon in his wisdom was like, you know what, let's just cut this motherfucker in half, and we'll give each half to one mother, and then everybody's happy, right? And I know you're American too, and that's what hurts even more, because only an American can say something that retarded. Holy shit. My God, the people in my country, kill me.
You understand everything pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stepped into it, and
They shook hands after the Civil War for a reason. They shook hands after the South was crushed and then reintegrated back into the United States when the Confederate States of America was destroyed and ceased to exist. They shook hands and then, yes, reintegrated back into the United States of America proper. Correct. Yes.
Definitely well prepared. But he wasn't. No. He was not deeply involved in the process. What border? Where is it? How long will it take to disengage troops? And why wasn't he involved? You want to know? Because he wasn't going to do any of this. This is what confused me. If you are not deeply involved in the issue, well then it's as if you don't really need the result. That's what I think. So what happened? We agreed that there will be gas continuation, gas transit. In 2019, we agreed with him. This was the security for Europe. Merkel asked me for it. And this was extremely important for Germany. We agreed with him. Secondly, we agreed that for him, it was just money. So secondly, we agreed on an exchange. For me, this was the most important thing. For them, gas was, for me, was the people. And this is a fact, because I wanted to have a humanitarian advantage so that there would be further meetings that would lead to sustained peace. And third, ceasefire. Ceasefire you spoke about. What happened? The gas contract was signed because he needed it. And by the way, he knew
To give a small ounce of benefit of doubt to Lex, Zelensky talks pretty long segments, and although seems to ask direct questions to Lex, plus, given the big delay and loss in translation, seems like it's a bit hard for Lex to jump in and have a back and forth convo without seeming to interrupt rudely. Obviously still wish Lex didn't just ask naive questions and actually dig more into the substance. Okay, I don't speak Russian or Ukrainian, so it's hard for me to know how good Lex's Russian is. But if you're not, like, if you are fluent in a language, the way that your mind searches for words is a lot different. There's a difference between, like, having an idea and expressing the idea versus, like, not even being able to think in the language, but having to hear them say something in that language, translated in your mind from the language to English, think of the idea in English, and then, I don't believe that you can have a fluent conversation. You can't have a real conversation like that. You can't do it. even in the very, very, very rudimentary Spanish that I know, like when I'm listening to things and I'm hearing it in Spanish as a non-fluent speaker, when I hear, I have to try to translate it back to English, and then I have to try to translate it back to Spanish in my mind, and then speak the most basic bitch fucking present tense infinitive version of verbs language that I could possibly do. There's no possible way you could have a serious, in-depth conversation involving emotion, involving different verb tense, involving higher level abstract concepts. You just can't do it, right? So in that case, don't do it in these languages. Now, I don't know, maybe Lex's Russian is good enough to do that, okay? That's one, okay? But number two, when you talk about Zelensky speaking a lot, okay? He's giving long answers, all right? The frustrating thing about most people that speak a lot is they say so much when they could have just said it in 1 or 2 sentences. It's not very information dense. It's just a lot of like, okay, we get it. You can fucking yap, okay? Zelensky is a guy who was, among so many other things, an actor turned president of a corrupt country turned military leader in one of the most unprecedented conflicts in the past 3 decades in Europe, and has done an admirable and a commendable job in leading his country through that. And when he is speaking about things that's going on, this is like very information dense stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you could dig into here. He's not just yapping, right? So far we've gotten an interesting perspective on ceasefire talks. We had a conversation that he had with the leader of Belarus. The entire concept of how important it was to control like the flow of information. This is something that other people around the world have learned during conflict, that it is incredibly important to keep lines of information. These are all like, there's like, in terms of just what he's talked about, like in 1 hour, right? This is an incredibly dense, I'm sorry, not in 1 hour, in like 50 minutes or 45 minutes, because there was a 10-minute introduction from Lex. There's a lot of stuff that Zelensky's given here. Like, it would be interesting to hear more on any of these particular things. But the only engagement has just been peace and love and hope. And that's just very annoying, I think.
The gas contract was signed because he needed it. And by the way, he knew everything about it. As for exchange, we took the first step and exchanged the people. Regarding the ceasefire,
I think the silver lining is that the lack of pushback and any kind of substantive critique from Lex will help further Zelensky's cause and make more people support Ukraine. Hopefully, maybe. I don't know how much this weird, bizarro format is going to inhibit people's engagement with this. But like, this would be such a fascinating time for Lex to present like the counter arguments. Like, why didn't you guys just give in immediately? Or why didn't you agree to peace? Or how, and maybe they're coming, later on down the road, because there is so much misinformation. We got into a little bit of it, like that. You banned Russian, didn't you? Right? I don't know, but we're only 45 minutes in. We'll see more.
Well, they started killing us in about a month. So I called him and I told him, we agree.
It would be very easy for Trump to pivot on Ukraine. Agree or disagree? Agree 1,000,000%. Trump can pivot any which way in Ukraine because nobody knows anything about it. Nobody really cares about it in the United States. And Trump doesn't know anything about it or really care about it. Trump could pivot either way, like 100%. Trump could be Ukraine's greatest ally. Trump is retarded enough that he could call in like a no-fly zone at U.S. airstrikes into Moscow and not even realize what the he's doing. Like, it's...
We done a ceasefire, didn't we? Well, it wasn't a piece of toilet paper, was it? This is serious business. Or so it seemed. It really was serious.
Not defending Lex. It is kind of just Lex's style from what I've seen. Very much open questions and letting the interviewee soapbox. Am I the only person on the entire internet who's aware of like what his audience thinks and doesn't like it when his audience thinks things that are super in contrast to what I believe? Is there a single other person on the internet that does that? I don't understand this. If I were to do a video, if I were to give a take, and like when we argue about the Luigi healthcare assassinator guy or the Trump firefighter guy or whatever else, and I see where I'm saying things and then my audience is like dramatically out of step with my belief, the inclination that I have is to fight with my audience or to figure out like, well, why do we believe in different things? How many of you do I need to ban? Just kidding. Like what's going on here? I couldn't imagine having so much of my audience believe a thing that I proclaim not to believe in. So when Lex is saying things like, I believe both sides need to do peace and blah, 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 but his audience is very clearly, massively far right, far Russian captured, does that not bother him? Or does that not irritate him? Or like, how can you not, there has to be something going on there that I don't understand. I don't know.
But was it? This is serious business. Or so it seemed. It really was serious. Merkel Macron.
Like, you guys keep falling for this stupid shit. Lex said people believe speaking Russian is banned, didn't he? He didn't outright say he believed it was true. Yeah, but he's repeating these are the things that his audience believes, and he's probably more favorable to that than not. Although I would have to see specifically if he's tweeted about this or said it. But
A ceasefire is important, isn't it? Not for New Year's, because everyone was celebrating New Year's. And now they're offering us a Christmas ceasefire. It's all the same. A ceasefire for 2-3 days just to get some praise. But this isn't a performance. This isn't some kind of theater. No, this is about people's lives. And that's what happened. After that, I called him a few more times. I think I only had 2-3 calls with him in total. I asked him for a ceasefire. He told me it couldn't be. We will figure it out now. People from the occupied territory, Russians and separatists, they were all there together. They continued to shoot and kill our people. Yes, the front lines were quiet, but they killed people. They were killing people. And I kept calling him. I called again and again, but there was nothing. Until, after a few months, the Russians stopped answering the phone. We did not have any contact since. I wanted another meeting, like we had in Normandy. I wanted the next meeting. I wanted to find a solution, but the Russians refused. We tried to make it happen through various European countries, and not only European, but the Russians refused.
like, the real test is going to be, what is it? There's something that, God, I read that one thing and it's like, it's lived in my mind forever. And I understand this so much better now. The ground that you meet for a conversation on is so, like, it controls everything in such a hard to understand way that, like, if I'm bringing you to a conversation and the assumption is, like, you guys are the one that need to find peace. You guys are the ones that are kind of like provoking the war. You guys are the one that, like, need to figure out how to end this. Why does it start there? Why is it not Putin's failures or Russia's failures to avoid war? Why is all of the agency placed on the victim here, the defender, right? But who knows? Maybe his conversation with Putin will be
passed along some kind of bullshit, made excuses. They didn't want it. Meanwhile, they were sending their snipers. We had evidence, living proof, even video evidence, because some of them were captured back then. Those were the snipers in training. They were training them. And later those snipers operated in Syria and Africa. These snipers were training in our country, in the East.
Like, one question I would have is, like, were you ready to die for Ukraine? Like, were you planning on, or what was the conversation like? Were you expecting to be executed a month into the war? Because my understanding, I could be wrong, but in the first couple months of this war, when everybody expected Ukraine to fall in 2 weeks, I don't think he ever fled Ukraine, right? I don't think he fled Kiev at all, right? I don't think he did. Didn't he? He was just there the whole time, right? Against an enemy to where, like, would anybody have even judged him if he would have left? Like, Zelensky flees Ukraine into Europe. I don't even know if anybody would have been like, wow, what a loser. Like, I think it would be like, yeah, obviously he's fleeing. It's fucking Russia's going to take over his fucking country. Yeah, and then there was the, because I think the U.S. offered to evacuate, and then there was that headline, Zelensky refuses, U.S. offered to evacuate, saying, I need ammunition, not a ride, because I think he said he needed more shells or something instead. These are the kinds of people that our country is supposed to exist for. Like, we are the most incredible force multiplier, or should be, for these types of people, and we failed to answer our call for that.
Good morning, Ukrainians. Currently, there are a lot of games appearing on the internet, like that I'm asking our army to put down arms and evacuate. So I am here.
Like, how do you even, like, it's such a propaganda war that Russia somehow still won. How are you as an American, like, how dare you spread the propaganda pieces about Zelensky and his wife are shopping in New York, right? Where are Putin's videos of him being on the front line? Meanwhile, Zelensky is, like, daily filming videos in places that people don't even know if it'll be under Ukrainian control in 2 or 3 days, or places that are actively being sieged or bombed, or attacked or infiltrated with assassins, or, like, nobody knows anything. And Zelensky's out here, like, posting videos of all this shit. Meanwhile, here's a question. Did Putin flee? Putin never fled Moscow when Petrovsky, I'm just putting random fucking Russian sounding syllables. Who's the meme guy? Did he flee Moscow when that guy was going north? Did he flee? He did? Like, that's unbelievable. How unbelievable. Did he actually? Putin flees Moscow. during this mutiny. Like, unbelievable. He flew to St. Petersburg. Unbelievable. Tucker said Zelensky gets no points because the leader is expected to be on the front lines. Trump wouldn't even join his marchers on January 6th. What a loser. God, our country's so pathetic right now.
Ukrainians were living targets. They were shooting from the other side, killing people, women, people, children. They were shooting. It was a hunt. By the way, it was in the Russian-speaking region in the east, where, according to him, everyone is speaking Russian. That's where they were shooting, where the situation currently is the most tense. They killed people. We sent this information, sent pictures. We sent them to the UN, sent them everywhere. We worked very hard, very persistently. I met with everyone. But who thought of Ukraine back then? They didn't notice it much. They didn't pay much attention to Crimea being illegally occupied either. And to be honest, the United States of America too, everyone was somewhat silent about this issue. That's how it was. It was like that before a full-scale war. I want to ask you a question about the ceasefire in Mariupol today. There are American and Ukrainian journalists, and everyone.
The commander-in-chief needs to stay safe. So just my understanding is based on what he said. It sounds like in Ukraine, his position is also the commander-in-chief as well. He called it the supreme commander. That was the translation. It sounds like that their leader has the same role.
There are American and Ukrainian journalists, and everyone will tell you who had contact.
They mocked Romney for saying that Russia was a threat way back then, because Russia is not a threat militarily, and Russia is not a threat physically to the United States. Russia is only a threat insofar as they have become a schizophrenic voice in the American mind. That's how Russia is the threat.
In Mariupol today. There are American and Ukrainian journalists, and everyone will tell you who has contact now with Mariupol, who fled from there in the last minutes just before the occupation, or who was able to leave, to escape after the occupation. Chernov, who won an Oscar, was among them. And the journalists that left Mariupol, they are here. By the way, we had a conversation. They will tell you that 20,000, 30,000 civilians were tortured and buried there. We do not know the number of victims. People who didn't want to work with them, who refused to cooperate with them, people who went on strikes to protest, people who did not want to work with the Russians who occupied Mariupol. And this is one example, just with this city. And I have a question for you. What about the millions of children? And I will ask you in Russian so that you hear this without delay. What about the millions of children over there? What if we just arranged a ceasefire without understanding what would happen next? Without understanding what will happen to Ukraine's security guarantees? What about the millions of children in the occupied territories? What should I tell them? What am I to tell them? What is it I should tell them? What? Whatever?
Republicans and conservatives are the weakness that drags the United States down. Yeah, I would say MAGA. But when I talked to the Keys guy, Lichtman, he just hated the Republicans, period. He said it was way more than MAGA. And having dug back the last 3 decades, I think I kind of agree.
Hey, all of you over there, see ya. And those tens of thousands of people buried there, is that what we want? Are we ready to forgive them for this? We must at least take the first step. If this is a ceasefire, we must know that there is a security guarantee for the part of Ukraine under our control. We need it so that he will not come back. This is very important. And what do we say to the people who live in those territories? These are millions of people. Did you know that since 2014, in Donetsk, in the Crimea, this is happening?
I'm glad that he specified in the beginning, because too many people say the war started in 2022, and I think I try to correct people when I hear that. It's not 2022. It's 2014. And then Anna corrected me, and I won't make this mistake because I also say the civil war in the Donbass. It wasn't a civil war in the Donbass. It was always a Russian instigated war. I shouldn't even say civil war in the Donbass. It was always a war in the Donbass instigated by Russia as well.
Happening in 2014 in Donetsk, in the Crimea. This is happening in Melitopol as well, as in Berdyansk now. They are making all these kids of drafting age go and fight. And if they don't go, they will be killed. Do you understand what's happening? That is why a ceasefire, everything I said, what I wish for, and I believe in President Trump's power to use all of this information to come up with a way to make Ukraine strong. And be strong. Why am I saying that? I will give you an example. President Trump will be in the same situation as I was in 2019. Precisely the same situation. I want to end the war. We want a lasting peace for Ukraine. We must do this. The ceasefire, exchange people, and then diplomatically return all territories. And we will do this through diplomacy. What will happen next with President Trump? If the ceasefire happens without security guarantees, at least for the territory we control, what does he get? If he manages to make a ceasefire deal, and 3 months later, Putin launches a new wave of attacks, what will Trump look like? What will Ukraine look like? What will everyone look like? Putin will just do it. And why would Putin do it? Because today, he's afraid of Trump. But once Trump manages, for example, to do a ceasefire deal without serious security guarantees for Ukraine, he will give a pass to Putin. Not that he wants to. No, he does not want that. I believe in what he says. But he will give Putin an opportunity. Because in Putin's head, he wants me to fight with Trump. Putin's plan is to end the occupation of our territory. This is in his sick head. And I'm absolutely sure of this. That is why I told you, don't wait for Putin to want to stop the war. Pressure him so that he is forced to stop the war. That's important.
It's important to say that what you said about the children is a tragedy. War is hell. But let me say again, we must.
Hasn't America always been like this to an extent? Like you never helped Europe in World War II because of Nazis, only because you got hit by Japan in Pearl Harbor. I think it's because of how far you're from Europe, but obviously Russia disinformation. I think that post-World War II, I think America saw itself far more as like a spiritual leader, I think, of the West. And I think that took shape sometimes in physical forms, whether it was the occupation or restoration of Japan, or the massive amount of money that flowed to Europe, or it was through like treaties and whatnot, like through the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Wait, okay, yeah, and like these larger like supranational is incorporating multiple nations, right? Like these types of things. I think America took a much more purposeful navigation as leader of the free world or whatever. But I think that the answer, or I think that the issue right now is like, when you listen to people talk about the United States, when you listen to people talk about Donald Trump, I think the issue is that right now, and I think unfortunately this is true, nobody really has an idea of what America stands for or what America wants. You always talk about America now as a country to kind of be manipulated or used, or Trump is like this empty vessel to fill your own desires with, to try to like move him in a way that like if we were to ask, like, what does Trump view America's role in the world as? Nobody, even MAGA, wouldn't have an answer to that. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know. How does Trump see America in the world? We truly have no idea. Largely because Trump is just not qualified for the job of being president of the United States. He can't even have a vision for America. He doesn't have the understanding, even the modern understanding enough to be able to say so.
Forced to stop the war. That's important.
It's important to say that what you said about the children is a tragedy. War is hell. But let me say again, we must find a path to peace.
There is one.
What is it?
There is one. Before ceasefire, strong Ukraine. Strong Ukraine's position? Yes, we can speak about it with Trump. For me, we can speak about security guarantees.
This has been a second thing that Zelensky, or he's brought this up a second time. I don't think this is a real quote. I doubt this is a real quote, but there's that picture of the democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. I don't know if this is a real quote or not. I doubt it came from it. This is saying it's fake. But you can't negotiate from a position of weakness because you have no leverage. This is realpolitik or whatever the f you would want to call it. Like you need to be strong. You need to be able to negotiate from a position of strength. And this idea that Ukraine can just roll over and negotiate as a defeated enemy and accept, because at that point you're basically doomed to accept whatever terms you're offered. There is no, and Russia is not a country that's going to give you a great deal of leniency in those negotiations if they feel like you're in a position of weakness as well, right?
Started with Trump. For me, we can speak about security guarantees, but a quick step is NATO, a partial membership NATO. Yes, I understand. I understand Trump's feelings about NATO. I heard him. He's thinking through all of it, of course. But anyway, yes, NATO is a strong security guarantee for all the people, for us. Part of security guarantees. The second part is the arms aid package, which we will not use. If a ceasefire works, nobody will use the weapons. For what? But it has to stay. But with all due respect to the United States and to the administration, not like before. I don't want the same situation like we had with Biden. I ask for sanctions now, please, and weapons now. And then we will see. If they start it again, of course, we'll be happy if you'll give us more and you will stand with us shoulder to shoulder. Of course, that is right. But it's different when you have weapons. Putin wouldn't have been able to occupy so much territory. It was very difficult for us to push him out. But we didn't have weapons before, and that is the same situation. It can be the same situation.
I wonder how much of this could have been avoided if Obama held the line. I'm not sure how hard he'd have been able to push against Putin in 2014, though. I doubt it all. Obama just had nothing. There was just no leverage at that point. Iraq and Afghanistan had destroyed us. The Arab Spring and then the Syrian civil war and the refugee crisis that resulted. I think the entire world was burned out on. I bring up Iraq and Afghanistan quite a bit as undermining U.S. foreign intervention. But truly in Europe, it was the Syrian refugee crisis, I think, that shook all of you. I don't speak on that one as much, but I think that the refugee crisis after the big Arab Spring, I think is a thing that changed a lot of Europe's views on the Middle East and probably also soured a lot of Europe's views on American foreign intervention as well. That was a hugely influential thing, I think, in a lot of European politics that would follow for the next decade.
I'm just sharing this with you. Like I said at the very beginning, I want to be very honest with you and with your audience. Yes, it's true. If we do not have security guarantees, Putin will come again.
To make it clear, let's describe the idea that you are speaking about. I would like to offer you other ideas too, but right now, your idea is that NATO accepts Ukraine minus the 5 regions of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Crimea.
How unbelievable.
Just so you understand the situation, the invitation to NATO is legislatively issued to Ukraine. So to us, all those territories are still Ukraine. But NATO so far can only act in the part that is under Ukrainian control. This can be negotiated. I'm sure about that. Yes, this would not be a great success for us. But if we see a diplomatic way to end the war, this is one of the ways. So it is. That is a start. Secondly, weapons, arms aid package. I'm not ready to discuss this publicly right now. It's all written down. And President Trump might have seen it or not, but we've got no secrets from him. Yes. So, but mostly it depends on the willingness of the United States, because some of it will come from the EU.
Would you support more regulations on TV news to replicate the impartiality of the 50s and 60s and prevent misinformation? I would have like 15 years ago, but it's too late now. Now the battlefield is on the fake news media. You have to be out here and you have to fight it. I think it's like a war now. It's too late to just regulate all the misinformation and lies away. You have to get more academics and more people involved.
Some from the United States, of course, together. So not just from the United States. No. We need unity with this package. So the package and sanctions. Yes, sanctions. But I think it's in the interest of all the smart people to not have Russian energy on the market in general. So he has to stop it.
I'm incredibly sorry, but with the way Lex Fridman carried that Zelensky interview and the topics he focused on, it has become fully clear to me how embarrassingly stupid a good chunk of the American audience is. My expectations were low, but wow, we are indeed living through this meme. Discussing Russian imperialism with Eastern Europeans, with Western Europeans, with Americans.
That's all. It's fine. American oil, American gas is okay. Why not? And it's cheaper. So it will be cheaper for the whole world. The money will go to the United States. And I think he will be happy. And the president and your people will be happy. But it's your decision. I'm just sharing. Yes, and cheap oil. So Putin won't have so much money for the war. And that's it.
But this is difficult because it's a lot. You're saying to continue the sanctions on Russia to accept Ukraine into NATO. I need to ask you some difficult questions about this.
Yes, go on.
I trust and respect your words today. Many people respect and love you in America. Trump respects you.
Loves me?
Oh, come on now. Remember last time you corrected me? When I said that you love Javier Milei, you said, no, I respect him. So let's not talk about love today. But could we talk seriously about guaranteeing Russia's security?
Okay, can I interview you a little?
What?
Question is, what land is the war happening on? And
Yeah. What? Oh God, is Is Lex going to bring up the invasion into whatever the is it Kursk? I don't remember. I don't even know the names of them into Russia right now.
Where did it start? On our soil,
Yes.
on our territory.
Yeah.
International law was violated. The sovereignty of our country was violated. Civilians were killed. Tens of thousands of our people were taken hostage. And everyone will tell you this happened. This is what happened. When I speak with the global South, which is trying to balance the two sides because of the history, because of their roots, and because of their shared economic interests with Russia in the past, and now, of course, when you talk to them, they are speaking a little bit like you. I mean, they're balancing a little bit, a little bit in between, but we will work on it.
Yeah.
It's our first meeting. During the second one, you will be more on our side.
Yeah.
But it's just
You're very convincing.
We will see.
Very charismatic.
Yeah,
Do you think Lex is genuinely pro-RU or just brain rotted or believes everything must be... Honest to God, I don't know. I've spoken to Lex, I mean, not at all recently, not since our bridge burning. But I mean, Lex always felt genuine to me, but bro, I don't even know. I don't know anymore. I don't know about anything. But he felt genuine. I hope he's genuine.
Thank you. But when I speak with them,
the thing that I'll say one, I'll give Lex credit for doing this interview and posting it, even if I think that the doing it in Russian and all this, the extra language shit is retarded. I'll give Lex credit for posting this, for doing it and posting it. However, I will say that, and there's a thing that I've been focusing on a lot, when you fall into bad information environments, it is just so much, there is such an ecosystem for believing in bullshit that it is so hard to break out of it. You have to change, because now MAGA and the right-wing misinformation apparatus has extended to every single thing, everything, right? If I go online and I watch my favorite gym influencers, they're all MAGA, and then I go to the gym and I work out, and a girl hits on me and I fumble it, and then I go online and I look up dating advice for red pill people, they're all MAGA. And it's Jesus, okay. And then after that, let's say I'm walking home and I just want to listen to some comedians, they're making anti-Biden, pro-Trump jokes, and their audiences are all MAGA. And then I get home and then I'm loading up random, I don't know, whatever other entertainment, Joe Rogan or whatever other normal that's all MAGA. It is extended to so many different aspects of life. I'm driving home in my Tesla that's owned by Elon Musk, the company of Elon. It's just infected so much. And the idea that if I were to try to communicate with anybody in that world and say hey, this thing is wrong, not only am I causing some cognitive dissonance there in forcing them to reconcile with something oh shit, well, that doesn't seem right. When they go back to their ecosystem, it's going to be so much reinforcing of all of these bad talking points, of all the disinformation, of all the bullshit. It's so much to overcome. It's so much to overcome. Aren't you just explaining people's choosing of their own media? I think you're being a bit extensive about the echo chamber reach. No, because you don't choose your own media anymore. A lot of it is chosen for you. For all of his issues and having a good back and forth conversation. Jason Paul was the last DNC chair candidate guy that I interviewed, right? One of the things that I think he's the one who said it, right? That you choose a little bit of your social media and then it chooses you. The algorithms will feed you more and more information. You're not choosing what media to consume anymore. It's being chosen for you after you've made a couple of choices for things that'll make you feel good, basically, right? The algorithms and the AI or whatever the to say are not feeding you things to give you a balanced view of the world. They're feeding you things to maintain your happiness so that you stay on the platform and then you click through more links on the platform and you consume more content on the platform. That's it. That's not maximizing for a truthful, honest world. That's just maximizing for things that keep you on the site for longer.
You're very convincing.
We will see.
Very charismatic.
Yeah, thank you. But when I speak with them, it's very important. Even with their balancing attitude towards the war, they all recognize that this is a war. This is not just internal conflict. This is a full-scale war that Putin began.
It doesn't have to just be happiness, right? The platforms can maximize for rage bait because it keeps you engaging. I think they generally optimize for things that keep you on the site, and I think that things that just rage bait or make you mad, I don't know if that keeps you engaged for as long. I think they do actually want to have you happier on the sites or feeling better.
And all of them, if you talk to them, they say, but then they all recognize that it's his own
But like, just think about how many pathways there are to the right. Even self-improvement stuff, all the self-improvement guys, all of those dudes are interviewing all of the right-wing MAGA people, all of the far-right authoritarian, all the Weinsteins and all these other people, like all of them. It's just everybody now. Everybody. It's insane.
But then they all recognize that it's his own big mistake, Putin's mistake, and that he's not right. That's why I said, no, he's not right. And you have to begin from this. If you begin at the middle, between Ukraine and Russia, of course, we can speak like this. You are in the middle and say, okay, what's going on? There is a fight. Where is the fight? It's not the fight like in Europe, when Napoleon is fighting against somebody in the middle of Europe. No, this is not in the middle of somewhere of the planet, not the planet. It's concretely on our land. Country with one army, one person came to another. That's it. It's very clear.
Again, I would like us to find a path to peace. So let us nevertheless try to start in the middle. What other ideas do you think might...
Oh my God.
What if both Ukraine and Russia are accepted into NATO?
Like what? Like my fellow countrymen, why can we not? Like, why are we doing this when we have the opportunity to interview Zelensky, the leader of a country currently out? Like, why? Why would we do this right now? Do we really need to do this right now?
Putin himself spoke about Russia, maybe about NATO. What you just said is very correct. What are the guarantees for Russia? It's not like I'm even interested what happens to them. To be honest, I don't care what will happen to them in the future after the war ends. But these are our borders, and we must understand what is going on there. Well, the NATO guarantees for Ukraine. Actually, this is also a security guarantee for the Russians. Frankly, I talked about this many times before. Sorry, I'm speaking figuratively, but as an example, if you were a father who lost his children, a grown man, a man, an adult, and the war has ended, and he never got justice for real. For example, somebody decides to freeze support. We won't give you anything. You can't fight. You can't continue. So we stop when we stop, without any guarantees, without any support, without financing, okay. And nobody is held accountable, but the man lost his children. He will not get anything. None of the killers will be in prison. All the sanctions will be removed. And he lost his children. And we have thousands of such people. Why do you think they will not go to Russia? We'll find a way and will not kill the Russian soldiers there or somebody there. Why wouldn't they? It's human nature. It's not about us. It's everyone. Read American writers. Always after any war. If there is no justice for people, there must be punishment for the crime. It is only justice. How come my child was taken away? The war took him. This is very scary. And even whether it was my son who was fulfilling his constitutional duty or simply a missile that struck a civilian child. And if there is no justice and the killers are not punished, why wouldn't these people come back with hate? They will definitely come back. So when we talk about NATO is not only stopping Russia. Do not forget, NATO is stopping us too. Because there will not be justice for everyone. We know that NATO does not have the right to solve certain issues with war. NATO is a security alliance. It is protection, not brainwashing. What Putin claims, that this is offensive, is not true. NATO is a defensive alliance, a security alliance, and it is security for Russia.
But unfortunately, there are many options for peace that don't involve NATO inviting Ukraine as a member.
Really?
Can you imagine security guarantees without NATO membership? For example, if America simply leaves NATO, I believe there is a high likelihood that Donald Trump would do such a thing.
I think it's very...
What are we talking about?
bad for NATO. That's the end. That's the death of NATO. It is a pity because I think that it's a very good alliance. Maybe not everything's good there from the bureaucracy or money, etc. But totally, countries who are in NATO, they don't fight. There is no war on the land of any
NATO country.
Of these NATO countries.
Correct.
I think that is the answer.
By
it works
design.
Not. It works politically or militarily. I don't know. But it works. So without Trump, without the United States of America, there will not be NATO. That is the first. So, and you say, can we imagine that? That what?
That
there is a world where, because what is it? I should know these. I don't know off the top of my head. I think the UK and France and who else still have nuclear weapons? Like theoretically, you still have a nuclear umbrella. It's just much smaller. And I don't know what the deployment capabilities of the other nuclear powers looks like absent the United States. I'm not sure, but there is some really weak version of NATO that could theoretically still exist, but
there could be security guarantee without...
No, we don't need guarantees without the United States. That's it, because the United States is a very strong, powerful country. The United States puts the point. Of course, Putin said that it's just the Soviet Union, where, by the way, Ukraine was the second strong republic militarily. Yes, by the way, but he of course, always forgets about it. But during the World War II, without help of the United States, support of your troops, support of your industry, industrially, militarily, without your money, without your people, Hitler could win. So the United States helped a lot. Of course, Europe, USSR, and of course, everybody fought. Everybody did a lot. But without the United States, it couldn't be such. I don't use the word success because I think that there is no war which ends successfully, because this is a war. 7-figure losses, heavy losses in World War II, millions of people. And that's why without the United States, security guarantees are not possible. I mean, these security guarantees which can prevent Russian aggression. Of course, we have security guarantees bilaterally with some countries, financing, support of our internal military and defending.
Destiny, that's not the issue. The issue is that France will preemptively strike if the retirement age is raised too high, or if somebody accidentally steps foot into Romania. They are insane.
Security guarantees bilaterally with some countries, financing, support of our internal military and defending and humanitarian issues, and demining, which is very important, and helping our children in the school networks. By the way, this is a very sensitive point. How many? How many bomb shelters? How many bomb shelters we built with the partners for the children? And it's a pity that they are underground, but can you imagine their eyes? When they came after COVID, you understand what does it mean COVID, but they had COVID and the war, and together they didn't see each other for so many years. And when they saw each other, even underground, they were very happy and smiling. So we have such security guarantees, but it's not enough to prevent. Yes, preventive measures also work to prevent the aggression of Putin.
Your English is better than my Russian. This is wonderful.
God, it gives so much energy of talking to a black person and doing he speaks so well when a black person can speak English. Oh God, sorry. Isn't that just Lex admitting they should have spoken in English? It's Zelensky.
I'm not sure.
I could be wrong, but hasn't Zelensky had a conversation or two in English before? I thought he's spoken a couple times. Haven't we seen him speak at least once or twice in English, maybe?
I don't know. It depends on many things, of course.
Now, to be fair, he's got the earpiece there, so maybe he's getting a live translation.
Once again,
Come on.
without NATO guarantees, I have a dream that, let's say, on January 25, or sometime at the end of January this year, you will sit down with Donald Trump, with Vladimir Putin, and together negotiate a ceasefire with strict security guarantees. And an agreement will be signed. What will this look like without NATO?
I will make it clear. And so, first of all, I think January 25th or some other day. Well, you just call it January 25th. And I don't mind. It's my birthday. And we sit down. First of all, with Trump. We agree with him on how we can stop the war, stop Putin. It is important for us to sit down.
Why do you think Zelensky agreed to interview with Lex Fridman, but not Tucker Carlson? They both seem pretty pro-Russia anyway. I can still chalk up every disagreement that I have with Lex. It's becoming harder, but I can chalk all of them up with Lex is in a bad information environment and tries too hard to both sides things. Tucker Carlson is a full-on anti-American Russian propagandist, like anti-US propaganda, crazy person. I just have Tucker Carlson is just is unbelievable. It is unbelievable what he has turned into. Yeah.
With him. Secondly, it is very important for us that Europe, which is very important for us because we are part of Europe. And not only geographically, geopolitically, but also in the European Union where we will be. For us, it is very important that Europe also has a voice. It's the second thing. It won't be long because Europe will be looking at us and we'll be looking at Trump. And by the way, I now see that when I talk about something with Donald Trump.
You rightfully call it Russian assets in RW, right wing, but not Russian assets in left wing like Bernie, Glenn Greenwald, Jackson, and Cutter assets like Cenk, Ryan Grimm, Kyle. I don't know who you are or who you think you're talking to, but I have called out Glenn Greenwald a fuck ton. I don't believe Bernie Sanders is like a pro-Russia guy. I think he's pretty pro-American. Jackson, do you mean like Jackson Hinkle? Absolutely. Cenk, I don't know about him. Ryan Grimm is highly questionable. Kyle Kalinske just has bad foreign policy takes. Tulsi Gabbard is fully purchased. Actually, I really can't tell for Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is one of the hardest to tell people because she is so fantastically moronic that I actually don't know. Like anything is possible anything is possible with Gabbard because she's just so stupid, like unbelievably stupid. Why does one side of my headphone keeps going out? I don't know why.
Whether we meet in person or we just have a call, all the European leaders always ask, how was it? This shows the influence of Donald Trump. And this has never happened before with an American president. I tell you, from my experience, this also gives you confidence, that he can stop this war. That is why we in Trump come first, and Europe will support Ukraine's position.
I don't think you'll like this, but I think Lex genuinely wanted to be your friend. You could have been part of his information landscape, rebuild the bridge. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I can text him and figure it out. It's very, very challenging dealing with these types of people. I had a huge argument with a friend who was very critical of me during the exploding firefighter arc. And I remember that we talked for a while and they were like, hey, I think that the way that you're approaching right wingers is not okay. Like, it's just too aggressive. Like, you were making so much progress in terms of appealing to them, blah, blah, blah. And I remember asking this friend, I was like, hey, how many conversations have you had like this with people on the right? Have you ever talked to a right-wing friend or somebody in your camp and said, hey, maybe we're a little bit too much on people on the left? Dead silent. Every single time. Yeah, I don't know. Well,
because they understand that Ukraine has every right to have its voice heard in this because we are at war. Trump and I will come to an agreement. And then and I am sure that he can offer strong security guarantees together with Europe. And then we can talk to the Russians. That's right. Not just three of us sitting down at once. And you still talk to me like that? Do you know how? As if Putin wants to sit down and talk, but Ukraine does not. This is not true.
I think that, yes, he is in fact ready to talk.
Did you talk to him?
On the phone or what?
How do you normally talk to him?
I don't know. Normally by the sea. The same as with you. He invites you to the sea with me. Just the three of us.
No, one of us may.
why is it not a serious response to that question?
I don't know. Normally by the sea. The same as with you. He invites you to the sea with me. Just the three of us.
No, one of us may drown.
Who? Are you good at swimming?
Yes, I'm a good swimmer.
You're a good swimmer. Well,
and I would like to add that if you have any contact with them, I just want to hear what happens then.
I have never talked to Vladimir Putin, but I have a feeling that he is.
How did Trump manage to make this disinformation ecosystem? Did he run at the right time, or was there always this media spirit? No, Trump is just a guy who's in the right place at the right time. I don't think Trump is very intentional in terms of how he manipulates any of it. He just was a guy in the right place at the right time who happened to be able to take advantage of it. None of his navigating was very
I
intentional.
want to hear what happens then.
I have never talked to Vladimir Putin, but I have a feeling that he is ready because Donald Trump is ready. I hope you are ready. And this is not just a feeling, but
Like, even the phrasing of this, everybody's ready for peace but you, Zelensky. Trump is ready. Putin is ready. I hope you're ready. Like, Jesus, that's so
he is
aggressively.
ready because Donald Trump is ready. I hope you are ready. And this is not just a feeling, but a dream. I have a dream here that the three of you will get together in a room and make peace.
Zelensky should say, what kind of peace should Ukraine accept?
Security guarantees look like that would satisfy Ukraine, that would satisfy Russia.
Ukraine needs security guarantees first and foremost. We are in danger. That is why they are called so. This is no joke to me. Let's take a few steps back. Interesting. Why are security guarantees, a strong position of Ukraine, strong weapons, and so on so important? I will give you a little history lesson. Although I think you have prepared yourself and know everything perfectly, well, you can correct me on that. Yes, Ukraine had security guarantees. The Budapest Memorandum. Nuclear weapons are the security guarantees that Ukraine had. Ukraine had nuclear weapons. I do not want to characterize it as good or bad. Today, the fact that we do not have them is bad.
I think Zelensky should change. He's probably thought it was way more than me, but I think Zelensky should change how he frames those Budapest memorandums rather than calling them security guarantees, because they weren't really. It was more just like he should phrase the Budapest memorandum as a non-NATO security guarantee. What does it look like when we have security guarantees without NATO enforcing them? That's what it looks like. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything without there being the full force and the brunt of the military force of NATO backing it. It's just words on paper, which is what the Budapest memorandums were, which is words on paper. For people that aren't aware of it, basically in 94, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Belarus all had, I think, nuclear stockpiles left over from the Soviet Union, and to return these aging stockpiles back to Russia proper, where they could control them, maintain them, and everything else, they they agreed to give away or to give back all of these nuclear weapons in 3 different separate agreements called the Budapest Memorandums. And they guarantee that if we give you back these weapons, you're not going to try to take our territory, fuck with our leaders, or do any weird shit to our countries. And the signatories to these were the US, Russia, and then it was Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan are their own individual ones, along with Budapest. It was like the UK, France, the United Kingdom, the United States, Russia, Ukraine, and there was one for Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Belarus. Oh, maybe France wasn't part of this. Fuck France. Okay, but there anyway.
Why? Because this is war. Today we are at war. Because you have unleashed the hands of a nuclear power. A nuclear power is fighting against us, against Ukraine, and doing what it wants. By the way, even you are now talking about ceasefire, just a ceasefire. Maybe give flowers to Putin, maybe.
Also remember, a ceasefire is not peace. A ceasefire just means we're not shooting at you right now. That's all a ceasefire is. It's not peace.
To say, thank you so much for these years. That was a great part of my life. No, we are not just ready for this. Why? The Budapest Memorandum, nuclear weapons, this is what we had. Ukraine used them for protection. This does not mean that someone attacked us. That doesn't mean that we would have used it. We had that opportunity.
Oh.
These were our security guarantees. Why am I talking about this in detail? Because if you take the...
Because what the Budapest Memorandums now say is that if you don't have nuclear weapons, you're going to be invaded. So you need to be part of NATO, or you need to engage in nuclear proliferation. You have to have a nuclear weapons program of your own, because why not? Otherwise, you're just going to get invaded and over.
Budapest Memorandum, by the way, I discussed this with President Trump. We have not finished this conversation yet. We will continue it. Regarding the Budapest Memorandum, the Budapest Memorandum included security guarantees for Ukraine. At first, three. The most important security guarantors for Ukraine. 3 strategic friends and partners of Ukraine. This was in agreement. United States of America, Russia, Britain, France, and China joined. There were 5 states.
Okay, maybe they did join. Okay.
These are not even security guarantees. We now understand that this is not a guarantee of security, because on the one hand, these are security guarantees, but there was an English word, as far as I understand.
Assurance. Oh, yep. Yeah.
It is translated as...
It means we'll do our best.
Assurance, right? And in Russian, it will be... And what? Assurance. That is, give up nuclear weapons because you were under pressure of the US and Russia for Ukraine to give them up. These 2 powers were exerting pressure. These 2 states negotiated to ensure that Ukraine does not have nuclear weapons. Ukraine agreed. These are the largest states. This is the nuclear 5 that does not even provide security guarantees. Now we just need to find these people, and we just need to put in jail all of those who, frankly, invented all this. So confidence, assurance. Assurance that Ukraine will be territorially integral.
Yes.
With its sovereignty.
Leaders and citizens won't be targeted or something.
A piece of paper. If you are curious, by the way,
True.
that after occupying part of our Donbas
Was already violated.
Ukraine sent diplomats 3 times. I don't think I remember 3 times within a few years. We sent letters to all security guarantors, to all members of the Budapest Memorandum. What did they send? What was written on the piece of paper? Consultations. Ukraine holds consultations if its territorial integrity is violated. And everyone should be in consultation. Everyone must come. Everyone must meet urgently. USA, Britain, Russia, France, China. Did anyone come, you ask? No. Did anyone reply to these letters, official letters? They are all recorded by diplomats. Did anyone conduct consultations? No. And why not? They didn't give a f***. This is understandable in Russian, right? That as Russia didn't give a damn, neither did all the other security guarantors of the Budapest Memorandum. None of them gave a damn about this country, these people, these security guarantees, etc. We take a break. This will be a Budapest Memorandum. The last time with me, imagine how many years it was with me. In February 2022. In February 2022, the war began.
Wait. No, it was in 2014, but I get his point. Lex likes Destiny. Destiny does not like Lex. To be clear, I can handle disagreeing with anybody. I'm fine with Lex, and I'm fine disagreeing with Lex, and I'm fine going onto his platform while disagreeing. Lex was the one that got really upset with me when my community was mean to him, and then I quote tweeted him once, just to be clear. Okay, so fuck you.
A full-scale war. Letters for consultations have been sent. No one answers. Next, we are taking a break from the Budapest Memorandum. The question is simple about Budapest. Can we trust this? No. Whichever country out of these 5 sat at the negotiating table, just a piece of paper. Believe me, we will save you. No. Another. This is a train. This is a train with waste paper, with security guarantees, which Ukraine has been riding for many years. The second car on this train is the Minsk agreements. The Normandy format and the Minsk agreements, where it was written, where the signatories were. The United States of America was no longer there. I understand that Obama was here at the time. And as far as I know, I think they were simply not interested in what happened to Ukraine and where it was in general, where it was located. Well, somewhere there. Part of something. People, and let it be. Let it be with these people. The United States simply did not participate in the Minsk agreements. There are no claims to the US because they were not guarantors. Where is the claim? A step back. 2008, Bucharest. Everyone has already learned from the Budapest Memorandum. Bucharest, 2008, Bucharest. Mr. Bush, President of the United States, Republican, says that Ukraine should be in NATO. This is the voice of Republicans. Check it out. Ukraine should be in NATO. Everybody's looking at the US, always. All in favor. Who is against? Merkel. So,
can we acknowledge again how Zelensky is coherently putting together a compelling narrative in an engaging way, more or less off the cuff? Imagine Trump/Biden talking this long and this coherently. Biden could when he was younger. Absolutely. 100%. I'm not as sure if he could now. Trump just doesn't have the knowledge to do it. Putin can do it. Most leaders in the world will be able to speak like this, especially when their country is at war. Or at least 10 years ago they could. But we just, in the United States, it's just now our standards are exceptionally lower, but.
So she opposes. Everybody's looking at the US, always. All in favor. Who is against? Merkel. So she opposes, and she forced everyone not to give Ukraine an invitation to join NATO because that would be a step. Seriously, Republicans were in favor. The US was in favor. Because Republicans.
Doesn't Destiny critique Hassan when his community was harassing Ethan? If DGG is harassing Lex, doesn't Destiny have some control over that? So it depends on how you define harassment. Harassment isn't just writes a mean comment about somebody. When people are saying mean things, if I think it's over the top or if it's not true, these are the things that I would try to inhibit. And even if they were true and it was too much, I'd try to inhibit it. But I think Lex is especially, I don't want to say fragile, but very sensitive to negative criticisms online. I can only do so much. It's not like it was threads after threads after threads and all these tweets of harassment and DMs or whatever. And it's not like I was greenlighting people on crazy Lex attacks. Like when Hassan says that Ethan is a crazy Zionist who wants Palestinians genocide. It's not the same. It's not even close to the same.
And Bush were not afraid of anyone. They were not afraid of anyone, and they knew that Ukraine rightly wanted to join NATO. She chooses so. And what is the question? Well, people made their choice. Well, and
why did Merkel not allow it? I don't know. I can't speak as much to Germany's motivations at the time. I'm not sure. I just can't say.
To join NATO. She chooses so. And what is the question? Well, people made their choice. Well, and the Russians will not look that way. That was not the case then. Why? Because the Russians were different.
Somebody said energy reliant on Russian gas. Germany wanted cheap energy. There you go.
Next, Minsk. We didn't succeed. After the Minsk agreements, as I told you, hundreds of meetings were held. I have had
To be fair, you're greenlighting the Russian shill bit, which I think is valid, but it's obviously a huge attack. Sure, but I don't know if Lex has done much to dissuade that. If Ethan was hosting crazy pro-Zionist after crazy pro-Zionist, and if Ethan was taking positions that were clearly insane insofar as his approach to the treatment of the Palestinian people, then I would be okay with Hassan attacking him as such. The problem is I just don't think Hassan's attacks against Ethan are congruent with the stated positions that Ethan has. So I don't think that's fair. Sometimes you guys do this weird thing where you're you said it's better to harass this guy by calling him a rapist, but you harass this other guy by calling him a murderer. And the first guy is not a rapist, and then the second guy is a murderer. And it's yeah, it's different because one of these is true and one of these isn't. Yeah, but then also, I just went off on how I wouldn't even say 1,000,000% that Lex is a total Russian shell. It could just be that he's in a really bad media environment or whatever.
Hundreds of meetings since 2019. We could not think about a ceasefire. A ceasefire is our offer. This is not somebody's suggestion. This is mine. I wanted to. In Ukraine, society was divided. Not everyone wanted to. Half did not want to. Half were against. Half were in favor. Some of them shouted, do not believe it. Some of them shouted, believe it. I am the president of Ukraine. I was given a mandate of trust by 70% of the population to take appropriate steps, and I made them. This is not a joke. We'll just sit the three of us. I am simply telling you what is. This is, how can I tell you? These meetings must be serious and prepared.
If Ethan was doing an interview with Mahmoud Abbas and Ethan was saying things and the entire interview was phrased from the perspective of why do you guys keep harassing Israel? Like, why are you guys so evil? Why does the PNA failed in its mandate to control the Palestinian territory? Like, and it was just aggressively phrased the entire time. Then I would probably then I'd probably still look at Ethan's like, okay, well, damn, I understand why people say you're a fucking Palestinian hater, bro. Like, Jesus, right? Or if he was like greenlighting every single thing Netanyahu did over and over and over again. Like, I'm pretty sure Ethan has probably said, I feel like I remember, I'd have to go back and look for examples. I'm sure Ethan has said a lot of incredibly negative things about Netanyahu. So it's just not the same.
And prepared with those who want peace. Ukraine wants peace. US wants peace. We have to sit down with Trump, and that is 100%. First and foremost,
Zelensky needs to bite my justice, not peace line. Peace doesn't matter. Who cares about, it's just not about peace. Anybody can have peace by surrendering. Every single war ever. It's about justice, not peace, right?
Ukraine wants peace. US wants peace. We have to sit down with Trump, and that is 100%. First and foremost, number one. Moreover, he told me on the phone that he is waiting.
I don't think you can hold people to your standards when it comes to these things. You're sort of singular in the landscape. Most people can operate with so few allies. Yeah, I understand, but there's no reason. Like, Hassan could survive just saying that him and Ethan have disagreements and they went their separate ways. Or Hassan could survive saying that me and him disagree things and we go our separate ways. But Hassan can't, he doesn't have to engage in the character assassination, and he doesn't have to engage in the outright lies. There's nothing forcing him to do that. It's not like he loses his popularity or his positions become untenable because he's not engaging in crazy character. Like, it doesn't have to be the case. It doesn't have to be like that.
And prepared with those who want peace.
He gave a similar justice take. Yeah, he did a little bit.
Ukraine wants peace. US wants peace. We have to sit down with Trump, and that is 100%. First and foremost, number one. Moreover, he told me on the phone that he is waiting for us to meet, and there will be an official visit, and my visit would be the first or one of the first to him. And for him,
what are these? 660S.
This topic is very important. I know that he has his own matters, American issues, I understand. I heard his election program, but regarding international affairs, I think our issue is one of the most pressing issues for President Trump. Therefore, I believe very much, I trust his words, and I hope we will meet again. We need to prepare. We have many plans to build on, and they exist, and they are supported by many countries. But we need...
The big issue right now is that, like, again, what does the US even stand for? Like, we don't even have a coherent vision that we present to the world. Like, what does it even mean for, like, we just don't, I don't know. Yeah.
His vision. He needs to look at all these details, but his vision, please. Because he can stop Putin, because Putin is afraid of him. That's a fact. But Trump...
Did you not make the exact opposite argument towards Palestinians that they need to look for a solution, peace rather than justice? Absolutely not. That has never been my argument. And if you go and you look at any of the conversations I've had with people, I've always said that painful concessions need to be made on both sides of that disagreement. I have always said that. I think I'll agree with Cenk too. The change is not complicated. It's painful. That's the issue. I don't know if Cenk realizes it, but what he said earlier about Palestinians giving up the right of return, that is a painful concession. That has to be matched on the Israeli side with a painful concession, like a big withdrawal from the West Bank, like 500,000 settlers, like gone, or part of the new Palestinian state. So like if one side is willing to make a painful concession, then the other side should be. And I think that's the big issue. I've never said that just one side needs to make a big concession on this ever. That is not true.
Is a president of a democratic country, and he does not come for life. He is not Putin. He will not come for 25 years. He will come for his term. Please tell me. Well, for example, he came for 4 years. And for the 5th year, Putin came with a war. Will it make Trump feel better that there was no war during his time and that Ukraine was destroyed after him? Why destroyed? Putin is whoever, a killer whoever, but not a fool. He will be prepared. He knows all mistakes. He understands how we defeated his army after the invasion began. He realized that this was not a Soviet war and that this would not happen with us. He will prepare. He will let everything into arms production. He will have lots of weapons and there will be a very large army. And you think that after such humiliation, 4 years without a war, he did not finish us. He will return and fight only against Ukraine.
Do you think that the Canada annexation shit Trump keeps talking about is real or just a negotiating tactic? It's not real, but it's also not a negotiation tactic. None of these things that Trump is saying is a negotiating tactic. For some reason, people are just like buying that because like conservatives invented that rumor. Trump isn't even negotiating for anything. He has no idea what he's even asking for. He's just an idiot.
He will destroy everything around. And if you say there is a risk that President Trump, will withdraw from NATO, for example, this is a decision of the United States. I'm simply saying that if it does, Putin will destroy Europe.
Yep.
Calculate the size of army in Europe. It's just that I say it for a reason. Do the calculation. Why did Hitler conquer all of Europe then? Almost. Just count, remember, his armies of millions. Calculate what Europe has. What are the largest armies? We have the largest army. The Ukrainian army is the largest in Europe. The second place after us is 4 times smaller than us.
France.
Yes. 200,000? I think the French have about 200,000. We have 980.
So this powerful coalition of European nations.
That will not be enough.
Yes, it's not going to be enough, but you're a smart man. There's a lot of ideas. Partnerships with Global South, India, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, economic partnerships, political partnerships. It all protects you.
First of all, look at one example.
Can't you say that Ukraine has to make a painful concession to Russia in order to get peace in the same way? They shouldn't have to, though. It's different. The Palestinian-Israeli situation is legitimately incredibly convoluted in terms of like what borders even exist for what reasons or for what. The Ukrainian borders were incredibly clear and everybody agreed to them. There were already like completely solidified agreements from all parties on what the Ukrainian borders were. It's not the same.
North Korea. Just look at this example. 12,000 has arrived. Today, 3,800 killed or wounded. They can bring more, 30, 40,000, or maybe 500. They can bring many people. Why? Because they have order, autocracy, and everything. Can Europe bring people together? No. Will Europe be able to build an army consisting of 2 to 3 million people? No, Europe will not want to do this. And for what? We definitely don't want a world war with you. There is no such purpose. There is no such purpose as gathering everyone. We do not want any war. We want to stop the Russians. And they invite North Korean soldiers. Invited. Their faces are burned. They themselves burn their faces. Those who cannot escape, injured or killed. There's a video. Everything I'm telling you, there is evidence of this. So that they are not recognizable, right? It means, what does it mean? It's out of values which share Europe. Europe counts. It means that those guys, they don't count. It's count, yes? They don't count the number of people. That is the answer. Can they move more? Yes. Can they move dozens of thousands? Yes, because we see what they have.
Why do you think North Koreans being involved did not trigger greater support from NATO? Because they're not Ukraine's not a NATO country. It doesn't matter what happens there. There's no NATO anything.
Last year, for example, Europe gave us 1 million artillery rounds. We produced a lot ourselves, but they gave us initiative. It was initiative, 1 million artillery rounds and of 155 and etc. We produced more. But North Korea gave Putin 3.7, just gave him. So he also has a deficit for today. It means he needs what? He needs time.
But the number of soldiers,
yes,
and the number of artillery rounds is not everything.
Can you elaborate on Russia trying to join NATO in the 90s? Why were they rejected if it's voluntary? I don't believe Russia was ever rejected from NATO. I think that they wanted like an expedited, I don't know, I haven't studied like the history here, so I can't give like a better or more concise answer, but I believe that Russia basically wanted like a special invite or like an expedited path to or ascension to NATO membership, and NATO just doesn't work that way. I don't know if Russia would have ever truly joined NATO or if that was just like posturing. I'm not sure. I don't know.
As you've said, let's say Donald Trump guarantees security for 4 years. You can form partnerships with India, with Saudi Arabia that enforce punishment, the stick, on oil prices, for example, if any aggressive action is taken. You can actually even build, I've met a lot of incredible Ukrainian tech people, IT people. You can build great companies that form partnerships with the United States, that form partnerships with China. And that is a big leverage against aggression of however many million artillery rounds. And that, a sheet of paper, you don't need a sheet of paper of protection.
That's you. Well, when you speak
in English.
In English, yeah, you don't even need answers, because when now we're talking, you already answered on all the questions. The first one is that during this time, you need just cooperation, a lot of money for this military industry. In Ukraine or in Europe, with India, Saudi Arabia, Saudi and the United States, you need a lot of money. So the question is where you will get it. So my answer was to Trump. I said, this is one of the security guarantees. Take 300 billions of frozen Russian assets. We will take it. Take money, what we need for our interior production, and we will buy all the weapons from the United States. We don't need gifts from the United States. It will be very good for your industry. For the United States, we will put money there, Russian money. Not Ukrainian, not European, Russian money, Russian assets. They have to pay for this. We will put it and we will make it. This is one of security guarantees? Yes, of course. Because this is a military guarantee, yes. But then the second you said, that energy price and a lot of sanctions on products and the Russian shadow fleet and etc. That is the second answer we spoke about before. Yes, put more sanctions on them. More sanctions. It's okay. Not to take off sanctions.
It's okay with you, but it's not going to be okay with the president of Russia.
Yes, but I'm not thinking how it will be very good for him. He's still a killer.
I understand, but unfortunately, the reality is that a compromise is needed in order to reach an agreement.
In your understanding, the fact that he is in jail after all the murders, he is not in jail assuming all the murders, and no one in the world is able to put him in his place, send him to prison. Do you think this is a small compromise?
This is not a small compromise. And to forgive him will not be a small
To
compromise.
forgive, no one will forgive. This is absolutely impossible to forgive him. We cannot get into the head and soul of a person who lost their family. Nobody never will accept this. Absolutely impossible. I don't know, do you have children?
No, not yet,
Okay.
but I would like to.
Yes. God bless. And this is the most important thing in life. And they simply took away the most precious thing from you, will you ask? Who ruined your life before going to rip their head off? I'm just curious. They took your child away. Are you going to ask who did this? And they will answer that dude did this. You will say, oh, well, then there are no questions. No, you will go fucking hell and bite their head off. And it will be fair. Can murderers be forgiven? That's why you make security guarantees. What I told you for those who are here and what we control and what will not happen. And that those who lost, we will never forget in a matter of time. But when you gave us NATO, I just said, this means that after a while, everything I said about NATO, after a while, Ukraine will not go against Russia. And Russia will not go against Ukraine because you are in NATO. I am just saying, is not that a compromise? So NATO is a compromise. This is not just a security guarantee, in my opinion. Look, when rockets were attacking Israel,
Zelensky should, I don't know how familiar Zelensky is with Lex's platform, but Zelensky should ask, what is the Russian compromise? What does Russia have to compromise on if Ukraine is not in NATO? So Russia invades, they get our territory. Putin's not prosecuted for anything. They have all the sanctions are lifted. What is the compromise on the Russian end? What are they compromising on?
and Israel is not in NATO. NATO countries' aircrafts were deployed. Air defense. The air defense worked. Operated by different Middle Eastern countries. These are also security guarantees. And by the way, Israel has nuclear weapons.
Although the security guarantees were easier for Israel because they weren't being attacked by nuclear powers, unfortunately, right? Yet. So that's why we could deploy that defense there. I don't know what it looks like if Iran actually does get nuclear weapons.
So why do they need NATO when in fact they have more than NATO has? The American, British, and French aviation stepped in. There was ADA. I don't remember from Jordan. Listen, thousands of missiles were shot down that way. This is, what is this? So it's a guarantee of safety.
Mhm.
It's just that it's not called NATO. Is some Uncle Vova irritated by the word NATO? There's a problem with the word. And I think he's simply irritated by people who are alive and living here.
If you believe this, it will be very difficult to negotiate. If you think that the president of a country is completely crazy, it is really hard to come to an agreement with him.
He didn't say that Putin was crazy. He never said Putin was crazy, just that he was a killer, that Putin is going after things that are in his interest. Putin's not crazy at all. I think Putin is acting incredibly rationally. Just because people might be evil doesn't mean they're random or crazy, right? Putin is responding predictably to a predictable environment laid out before him. As long as Putin can act without obstruction in this manner towards Ukraine, he will continue to act without obstruction in this manner towards Ukraine. That's what the point of security guarantees are, is to make you reconsider your position because now you're weighing different consequences that weren't there before.
You have to look at him as a serious person who loves his country and loves the people in his country. And
Oh, this is so cringe. What does invading my country have to do with loving yours, bro? If you love your country and you love your people so much, why do you keep sending your young men here to die? Like, you love Russia and you're showing that by sending young Russian children to die in Ukrainian ditches? That's love for your country?
you have to look at him as a serious person who loves his country and loves the people in his country. And he conducts, yes,
Who are
destructive
you?
military
Who are you
actions.
talking about now? Who loves his country?
Putin. Do you think he doesn't love his country?
Why is
No.
he sending his...
What is his country? He happened to consider Ukraine his country. What
Yeah.
is his country? Explain it. Tomorrow he will say that it's America. No pity for the Chechens? Do they look like Russians?
True.
Do they speak Russian? Of course. Of course they learn in schools, like anywhere there's been Russification. Who are the Chechens? A different people. Another faith, other people, another language, a million. Eliminated. And eliminated how? How did he kill them? With love? I know, by hugging. In Ukrainian, as we say, strangling by hugging. I love you so much. I love you so much that I want to kill you. That's his love. And that's not love. You're mistaken. He does not love his people. He loves his inner circle. It's only a small part of the people. He doesn't love them.
True.
Why? I'll explain.
Counter. Let's hear what's the Lex counter to that? What's the Lex counter to that?
You cannot send your people to another land to die, knowing that they will die. Children, my daughter, she is 20 years old. For me, this is a child. She's already an adult, of course. But she is a child. The boys he sends are 18 years old. 18 years old. They are children. He sends them. It's not that fascists came to his land and he needs to defend it.
True.
He came to ours and he sent them. Chechnya, he sent them. Syria, he sent them. Africa, he sent them. Georgia, he sent them. Moldova, Transnistria, that was before him. Fine, we can leave that aside. He has enough sins of his own.
This guy has all the good job. You can tell that Zelensky's been watching the Destiny streams. Hell yeah.
And then there's Ukraine, the largest part. 788,000 killed or wounded Russians. He calls them all Russians, even those who don't know how to speak Russian. On his territory of Russia, everything they've enslaved. Yes, proud Varangians. So I wonder, is that love? What love is this? And for what? Does he love his people? No. Does he love his land? His country is bigger than America. How much land do you need? America is huge. America is simply an outstanding country. Outstanding country. Russia is bigger. Well, just bigger. So ask yourself, does he love them? What is he doing? And what does he love? Do you think he's been everywhere in his Russia? It's impossible to get around it. He hasn't been everywhere. He just hasn't.
Well, I believe that Donald Trump loves America, and I don't think he has been
I'm
to
sure.
every single American city.
No. I saw his rallies. So many
Yes.
rallies. No, let's be honest. Let's be honest. He had it and I saw it, and it's very difficult. He's not 18. Yes, but he's strong. And this is his will. Everywhere where the war is. I'm sure. I pray to God it never will be on your land, yes, and I'm sure that it will not be. But I'm sure that if you have in some region the problems, how to say earthquake, hurricane, you have it all. Well, I'm sure that President Trump would be there. After 1 day, 2 or 3 days, I don't know the security of all these things, but he will be. Otherwise, how will people look at him? Yes, of course he will. Of course. The same about me. I'm not comparing myself with him. I'm just, where it is difficult for people, I have to come. The next question is very simple. Region. Kursk region. The operation there. Was Putin in Kursk during 4 months? No.
Listen, I have tremendous respect for you, admiration for many reasons, one of which is
Why am I having an autism moment? I don't, if you're on a date with somebody, okay, you're trying to rizz up a girl or you're trying to rizz up a guy. One of the keys to having a good conversation is to make it not sound like an interview. You are listening to the things that they're saying and you're identifying the interesting points and you're asking them a question to further that part of the conversation that they've revealed about themselves, right? What did you, like, what's your job? Oh, I'm a chemistry researcher. Oh, you're a chemistry researcher. Did you play any sports in high school? I guess I did volleyball because my mom said that she really wanted me to be a collegiate volleyball athlete before she died. Oh, your mom? Oh, what kind of car do you drive? Like, if you're having a conversation with somebody like this and you're just like moving down, it feels like a list of questions and you're not engaging on like anything they're saying. It's not a real conversation. You have to like respond to what is being said. I feel like, I don't know if Lex has responded to a single thing that Zelensky has said so far. It feels like we're just running down a list of questions. I super don't understand this style of engagement. It's very, 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 very weird.
Was Putin in Kursk during 4 months? No.
Listen, I have tremendous respect for you, admiration for many reasons, one of which is you stayed in Kyiv, and another one is that you visit the front, and you talk to the soldiers in the front, and you talk to people all across Ukraine. Absolutely, tremendous respect for that. So,
and Zelensky is a smart guy who I said before, like everything he's saying, he's very information dense, and he's a smart dude, and he seems like he is I hate using EQ or emotionally intelligent or whatever. I don't even know if that's real. But he seems like he could have a conversation and he's just not getting it at all here. Has Zelensky done any other big English speaking shows with anybody? If we went to Ukraine, what are the chances? I feel like it'd be low to none. I wonder how Lex got this topic.
And not enough people say that, I had a conversation with Tucker Carlson, for example, and, I said that you're a hero for staying in Kyiv. And he said, well, he just did a thing that every leader should do.
God, what a fucking loser. God, I hate this fucking dude. Tucker, not Lex. the conversation, I would have expected this, maybe not, actually no, because I have a much higher opinion of Zelensky than I do of Netanyahu. The conversation with Netanyahu was incredibly, like, you could tell, like, I'm not as critical for Lex's conversation with Netanyahu, a little bit because of what he told me about it and how that would go and the restrictions he had on, but like, it's very obvious even in watching this conversation that Netanyahu very clearly had a lot of restrictions on what Lex could ask and where that conversation could go. It was very, very, very obvious that Netanyahu is viewing this opportunity as to do basically propaganda, kind of. And Lex is trying to operate within that environment, which is very challenging. And I have sympathy for Lex here. But Zelensky seems so much more open. A 3-hour conversation. Bro, it kind of sounds silly, but has any world leader ever in the history of all the world done like a 2.5-hour conversation on like a long form show like that? Like, has this like ever happened ever? Any current world leader ever? Donald Trump? How long was Trump's Joe Rogan appearance? Trump, Joe Rogan. Oh, okay, no. Okay, Trump has. Besides Trump?
I said that you're a hero for staying in Kiev. And you said, well, he just did a thing that every leader should do. But I think not enough leaders do the thing that every leader should do.
Oh my God, that was such a charitable interpretation of how many leaders at all would do this. Like, okay.
So tremendous respect. I agree with you totally. Yes, a leader should go to the front of a war. That said, America has waged wars all across the world. That has the war in Afghanistan and Iraq cost $9 trillion and killed over 1 million people. War is hell, and just because war is waged in terrible ways that it is, does not mean the leader does not love their country. But
like, it's so much removing of agency. Like, it's not just that war just happens to be bad. There is one man making the decision to wage this war. This is not happening by accident. This is not a random event that is inevitably occurring and must have occurred. Like, this is not the case. And I hate it when he refers to it like this.
I take your point. I once again have a dream that even if there's hate, that you sit down with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and you find a way to peace. Let me ask you a question. What do you think? Will there ever be a day when the Ukrainian people to peace? Let me ask you a question.
Like, what the fuck, man? What the fuck, dude? Really? What? He's like, what the fuck? What? Bro.
What do you think? Will there ever be a day when the Ukrainian people forgive the Russian people?
Bro, they're still at war. They're still being invaded. This is like a dude crawling out of the gas chamber. It's like, hey, buddy, before you pass out here, okay? You think the Jews and the Germans will ever get along again? Bro!
And both peoples will travel back and forth again.
Like, fuck, should I have been watching his facial expressions more? Have they been?
What do you think? Will there ever be a day when the Ukrainian people forgive the Russian people? And
what?
Both peoples will travel back and forth again and marry each other, rekindle and form friendships. Will there be such a time in the future?
I think history has long answered this question.
Yes.
I don't know how it will be for us.
It'll happen eventually, but
without a doubt, history has shown this time. And again, after every devastating war, one generation, one country recognizes that it was an aggressor, and it comes to realize this is impossible to forgive. This is precisely the kind of education they've had in Germany for many years, even though these children had nothing to do with it. It was their grandfathers who participated, and not all of them were participants of Nazi Germany's war essentially against the world. Yes. And against life. And therefore, they're still apologizing. Apologizing is not easy. They know that they were the aggressors. They were guilty. They do not look for compromise in history. Compromise in itself buys time. And they understand this. There are convicted murderers, condemned both historically and by their own people. Reparations have been paid, and security guarantees have been established, by the way, and all this is done. And when all this is done and recognized, in any case, people develop relations with each other. That's clear, but it can only happen the way it always has in history. Russia will have to apologize. It will. This will happen because they are guilty. They are guilty. And as I told you, the guilty are different. Both those who participated and those who remain silent, because silence is also about participating,
True.
in my opinion.
Especially when you have the capability to act, right? Remember what it means when you lack the will to act? It makes it your fault too. We learned this. When Liam Neeson's blamed Bruce's father for failing to act to save his family?
Can I ask about Donald Trump? We've already mentioned him a lot, but let's focus there. What do you admire? What do you respect about Donald Trump?
Why even ask? Why even ask? What a question. Why?
And also maybe
Listen, I will give a lot. And I'll say this, I'll put this on the record right now so that I can't back away from it or anything else. Okay. I'll give a lot of respect to Lex if he asks similar questions to Putin. Like, and if he presses him as hard as he's pressing Zelensky here, why are you guys still fighting? Why won't you, settle for peace? Why are you guys instigating all this?
maybe why do you think
Zelensky loves his people? Well, no, that's not even fair because Russia's in the aggressor position. So Putin can say all those things and still seem magnanimous, even when it's like propaganda.
What do you admire? What do you respect about Donald Trump? And also maybe why do you think he won overwhelmingly the election in 2024, that American people chose him?
He was stronger. He was much more stronger than Kamala Harris, Biden first, and then Kamala Harris. Yes, he showed that he can intellectually and physically. It was an important point to show that if you want to have a strong country, you have to be strong. And he was strong. And this number of rallies, what I said, is not a simple thing. He showed that he can. He is strong. So he doesn't have any questions with this age and etc. Nothing. He is young. He is young here and his brains work. So I think it's important, very important. And of course, a lot of interior questions. I understand the prices and etc. Economic questions and the questions of, you have the questions with other things.
Immigration, yeah.
A lot of things. I understand. So maybe he answered all.
Any idea why the glaze? Because having favorability with the American leader is probably the most important thing for the future of your country. What do you mean?
On those questions which people had.
One of the questions.
That he will finish the war.
That he will finish the war?
Yeah, for me, this is the main question. But I said that for him, he's the president of the United States. For him, his priority is his questions in the United States, and I understand and I respect it. But the second he was speaking about the world, yes, he said that he will finish the war. And I hope very much, because I think that our people really support his idea. And that's why I said it is for me. It's very, very important to have enough people around him who will have connections with him with the right things. For me, the truth is very right things. What's going on really on the battlefield? What's going on really with Putin and Russia? What he really wants. And that is just to have it. Before any decision, you have to be at the same level of information. And we need him to know everything from us, from you, from people in Ukraine, from people around who are really afraid that Putin doesn't want to stop the war, afraid that he will come back with his aggression.
So first of all, I should mention that.
What do you think Zelensky truly lies on Trump v. Biden? That's a really hard one. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Zelensky himself actually slightly favored Trump because he felt like Biden could have helped more. But it also wouldn't surprise me if Zelensky didn't like Trump because he felt like the Republicans were the ones holding up aid to Ukraine. It also wouldn't surprise me if Zelensky thought that Trump was better because Trump could just pivot randomly on Ukraine and be harder. I could see it going either way. I truly have no idea. But I don't even know if Trump is better for Ukraine than Kamala would have been. I truly don't know. I don't, because Trump can literally do fucking anything. And that's not a compliment the way they dipshit maggots pretend it is. Like, oh, Trump's a wild card, so he could do anything. That's not good. You shouldn't be chaotic when you're the leader of the free world. But it's hard to say what could happen.
Our conversation today will be translated and dubbed into Ukrainian, English, Russian, other languages, Spanish. So you're in your voice. So there are great guys originally from Poland. It's a company called 11 Labs. They've trained an AI. Artificial intelligence sounds truly remarkable in your voice. You have the freedom to speak in any language you choose, but no matter what, you will always find yourself returning to speaking in Ukrainian. That is, when you talk about Donald Trump, you can do it in Ukrainian or Russian.
Everybody understands.
Everybody understands. But you said that there's some things about the war that maybe Americans don't understand. So we talked about Putin. We talked about the security guarantees, but the reality of war, what's happening on the ground, what do you think that people should understand?
First of all, they have to understand the idea of Putin's war. It is very important for him. I consider this process I think it is very important for him not to give Ukraine independence. To prevent Ukraine from developing as an independent country, for him, influence on Ukraine cannot be lost. And for him, it is, I think for him, this is such a goal in this last mile, and certainly for him, the last mile and of his political life.
Why do you give people like Lex so much charity? This interview is weird, to say the least. If it were any other conflict, this entire premise would be totally insane. If they interviewed the Polish president about Hitler in 1942, it would feel like this one does. Yeah, but we've already shown, I think we've demonstrated now, at least in the US, like what would happen if you were around when Hitler was rising to power, whatever. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people that would support him. In the US, we've seen that at least half the country would probably support him. So, that's just the world that we're in, right? Unfortunately.
And I think that this is the goal for him. The second story, I do not want to talk about these banalities, that he wants to return all the territories of the Soviet Union, influence over them. He does this little by little. I just don't want to, people need to know details. For example, Georgia, which was headed towards the EU and NATO, completely turns towards Russia, regardless of the fact that they have frozen conflicts. They have in Abkhazia what we have with Donbass, which is controlled by militant rebels. Abkhazia is not developing, it's just a very beautiful part of Georgia that has died. And
Destiny, acknowledge that this is unacceptable. Well, yeah, I don't think you should be doing that. It's unacceptable, of course. Do you buy into the idea that once Trump gets in, he'll magically put an end to all the major conflicts? Every Republican in my life firmly believes that come January 20th, Russia and Ukraine will be over. No, Trump didn't put an end to any conflicts. That's just a fiction that for some reason Trump is able to tell the world, or I'm sorry, able to tell the US. The whole, like, there were no wars under Trump. That's just not true. That's just a lie. It's just completely not true. There were more wars under Trump than there were. I'm pretty sure the US was participating in more conflict under Trump than they were under Biden. But we just don't believe that for some reason. I don't know. They're just allowed to say whatever. Like, I don't know what to say. Name three what? We were participating in the Saudi coalition against Yemen under Trump pretty heavily. He even obfuscated the amount of drone strikes that were happening there. I think Biden pulled us completely out of that fight. We're no longer participating there. We had a much more active military presence in the Middle East. Now, Trump says that was to fight ISIS. Sure, fine, but we were still there. And part of our pullout there, as disastrous as Afghanistan might have been, part of our pullout there was pulling out and abandoning all of our Kurdish allies and not being able to control Turkey at all when it came to fighting against them. In Syria, we did a massive bombing campaign against attacking Wagner Group people who were Russian soldiers, basically, or a Russian merc group. In Afghanistan, we had lost 40 or 50 Americans during the entirety of Trump's presidency in Afghanistan. He surrendered to the Taliban, but he kicked that can down the road to Biden's administration. We bombed a Syrian airport after Syrian gassed their people. What else? Yeah, there's other stuff that Trump wasn't immediately involved in, that the U.S. wasn't involved in, but you had the Iran attack on Saudi Arabia. You had the border riots going on for a year in Israel. The IRGC was still doing foreign stuff. We did an assassination in Iraq. Like there was way more military conflict and shit that the U.S. was directly involved in under Trump than under Biden. So it's just so weird that aren't these mostly, if not all, inherited wars? Sure, you can call them inherited if you want, but to say that there was no war under Trump is just stupid. It's just not true. It was just stupid.
And if you have the opportunity, then go there someday. You will understand. It simply died because Putin wanted to. He wanted not to allow them to develop, because a frozen conflict means that you will not be accepted in the EU and certainly will not be accepted into NATO. Because right now, yes, they do not take you because of a frozen conflict. And this is what Putin did. It's very important for him not to lose this influence. That is, he turned back Georgia, young people, students, everyone leaves.
Do you have a steel man for the pro-Russian position? I just truly don't see it. Siding with Ukraine in this conflict seems like such a no-brainer. On the Russian side of things, I think Russia sees itself almost like America in terms of like their position on the world stage, although it's a tad delusional, but it feels like Russia sees itself as a world power that's still desperately vying for being treated as a world superpower. The idea that China is replacing Russian influence, the idea that America no longer cares about Russia, Russia's economy is just not that great compared to where it could be. Like Western Europe even has like left Russia behind, and now Eastern Europe maybe is like starting to leave Russia behind. Russia wants to exert control over people near it because they want to rebuild what they see as like a fallen empire, basically. And Ukraine was just basically another building block in that empire that was now slipping away when Ukraine was looking to turn further towards, like trading with the European Union. So I think that Russia just sees its influence and grasp on the world slipping away. They saw an opportunity with Ukraine after the expulsion of Yanukovych in 2014 to come in and militarily exert some influence, kind of like they do over Belarus. But I mean, that's the steel man is just that they're like trying not to fade away into irrelevance, basically.
And this is a fact. Georgia is quite small, and they will leave. They want to live in Europe. They want to develop. Somebody in the United States, somebody in Europe, somebody in the EU, somebody in Britain. He will now fight for the Moldovan parliament. This is his second step. You will see in April what happens. You will see, he will start turning Moldova away from Europe. Although they want to go there, he does not care. There will be a pro-Russian party, and they will do something with the current president because she has won the elections. She is pro-European, but he will turn this back. The next steps are completely clear. He will do everything wherever he has lost influence, where there was influence of the Soviet Union. He'll turn it back as much as possible. And we understand at what price. You have seen Syria. You saw these tortures, what we saw in Bucha, what we saw everywhere we came, and where our territories were occupied. In Syria,
they should have become European after 91. I can't speak to this because I don't read Dugin or any Russian philosophy or know too much. But like, I don't think Russia wants to see itself as part of Europe. You have to understand that for 50 years, Russia saw themselves as like an equal to Europe, an equal to everything in the East, or greater than that, and greater than all of that, actually, and then an equal to the United States of America. So the idea that they would just be subsumed into or assimilated by Europe, my imagination would be that is like philosophically, nationalistically humiliating, that we're going to just be another one of the European countries. Like we're supposed to, that would be the feeling that I would have, but I don't know 100%. Like Russia has a rich history of being like an empire, like a huge country, an empire country. Like there were the czars, there were the revolutions, they were like the bedrock of like socialism and communism and alternative, like opposition to the West. Like Russia just has such a rich, powerful history that it almost feels like you're telling Russians to become like, how we talk about like the Romans and the Greeks, and then we look at like Greece. Like that's probably, I would imagine that's what Russia, you want us to be like Greece? Like that's what we're going to be? That is a really like abstracted feelings I have, but I don't have a super good understanding of like the Russian, that's just how it feels. But
these tortures, what we saw in Bucha, what we saw everywhere we came, and where our territories were occupied. In Syria, the same happened. There were 1,000 people there, and you have seen it. Scientists were found, doctors were found. It is clear that any people are capable of generating their own opinion, show their skills, develop society. Everyone who can express an opinion, everyone who can shape the independence and maturity of society, such people are not needed. And he wants to.
That wasn't a steelman at all. It's just a slightly more rationalistification. What would be an argument that would sound reasonable in the sense of being in the right with attacking Ukraine? It's what I just said. What do you mean? That if Ukraine slipped away and became a further puppet of the West, because Russia views everybody as a puppet one way or another, that Russia they'd lose access to the Black Sea, they wouldn't be allowed in Sevastopol anymore, Russia's ability to project force to anywhere in the world would be even increasingly threatened, that an antagonistic an antagonistic enemy on its borders would threaten the political stability and maybe even the economic stability of both Belarus and Russia. It would foment things like color revolutions or whatever on the border. Like, I don't know, just all these negative things. They just want to, they feel like they need to be in control of things more. It's like an abusive partner, right? Where the abusive partner wants to maintain control of you because as soon as you have a little bit of freedom, you're going to walk away. That doesn't sound like a good statement, but it's, yeah.
This in Ukraine. And therefore, everyone should understand that Ukraine is like a large wall. From that, Europe, and if, God willing, President Trump does not withdraw from NATO. Because again, I believe that this is the biggest risk. I think 2 steps.
He probably wants a steelman on why they deserve that control. Oh, I don't know if you could ever steelman that. That's almost impossible because they've agreed to so much like concrete contractual. I think you would have to start buying into conspiracies. I don't think Ukraine gave them a good reason to. I don't even know how you could steelman that.
2 steps that Putin would like to see is a weak NATO. And this without Trump, and a weak Ukraine, which cannot survive on the battlefield, simply cannot survive, and prevent me from building a strong relationship with Trump. I think these 2 steps, leaving NATO and Ukraine's weakness, will lead to a large-scale war, which Putin will wage on all the territories of that Europe, post-Soviet Europe, Soviet.
Wait, that argument isn't palatable to logical people, though. We can't just invade people because we are paranoid. I'm also confused what Russian position could sound justified. Well, you can do a lot of things when you're afraid or paranoid. Am I making this up? Or wasn't it illegal at one point in time in the United States to be a communist? I know that we did the McCarthyism where we accused people of being foreign spies and everything, but if it wasn't illegal in like de jure, then it felt illegal de facto, that there were a lot of penalties for having like certain political opinions in the United States. We were paranoid about countries surrounding us as well, like becoming communist countries, right? We fought in Korea, we fought in Vietnam. Those aren't around us, but I mean, we were very big in intervening in South American and Central American political institutions and governments and shit. Like, so I mean, like we did a lot of this as well, but
Europe, not post-Soviet, but post-World War II period. That is Soviet Europe, Soviet-era Europe. In order to...
I mean, we locked up all of our Asian people. I don't think it was just the Japanese, right? For the internment camps. Wasn't a lot of Asian people as well during World War II because we were afraid of them turning on us or being spies or whatever the fuck else too. So,
but post-World War II period, that is Soviet Europe, Soviet-era Europe. In order to completely control everything there. This is what he will do. And besides this will happen in any case, even if the US is thinking about leaving NATO. This war will affect the United States because North Korea is the first sign. North Korean skills, North Korean knowledge, which they are now gaining from this war. These include mastering new technologies, large-scale drones, missiles, how it works.
Fuck. Wait, hold on 1 second. Let me search. Hold on 1 second. Do you think that Trump agreeing to leave NATO would change Putin's position on Ukraine joining NATO? So much between NATO's powers. There is no such thing. The United States can never leave NATO. It's not possible. What can happen is NATO can cease to exist. If the United States leaves NATO, then NATO just ceases to exist. There is no NATO, I don't think, without the United States. It doesn't make any sense. There could be like a NATO in theory without the US, but like in practice, like it would just be such an unbelievable blow to the confidence of... Yeah, it just wouldn't. Yeah. Hold on, I'll be back 1 second.
The kind of technological war we have today, cyber war, etc. All these skills Korea will bring home and scale up in that region. And this will be a risk for the Pacific region. Security first and foremost. For Japan and for South Korea, they will face these risks 100%. And it will be clear that Taiwan will also have to face them. Without this, it is impossible. This is already happening. This is already happening. Therefore, I think that President Trump has all power to stop Putin and give Ukraine strong security guarantees.
We've been talking for 2 hours at the pause. You want to take...
Yeah, we will make a pause. We can have...
Okay.
I think possible. This is already happening. This is already happening. Therefore, I think that President Trump has all power to stop Putin and give Ukraine strong security guarantees.
We've been talking for 2 hours at the pause. You want to take the...
Yeah, we will make a pause. We can have coffee, right? Coffee?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And give the interpreter. He's struggling.
Some water.
We keep switching languages.
Like a dragon, 3 heads, 3 translators.
So one of the difficult decisions you had to make when the war began is to enact martial law. So when you won the presidency...
I love him. I just love this. I'm sorry, real quick. This concept had never been more solidified in my mind than after talking on the Piers Morgan show a few times. So people are saying that why would Zelensky talk to me? Because he wants to go and talk to conservatives. Obviously, I'm not Zelensky's coach or, comms director. I don't think Zelensky should talk to any conservative media unless he can require that certain questions are asked. And the reason why is because you actually cannot fight on a platform where you can't dictate any part of the conversation. If it's just the other person that can ask the question all the time, you are always at a disadvantage, no matter who's right or wrong, no matter where the facts lie, no matter what you're trying to say. It doesn't matter because the other person always has control of the conversation. The reason why I would be the most important person. No. Well, unironically, here's why I think I could have a good question with Zelensky is because I can provide the questions that give the strongest version of all of the Russian bullshit talking points for Zelensky to have a thorough knockdown response to. Because if Zelensky goes on any of these fucking these far-right authoritarian programs, he will never get a chance to even do that, right? I don't think that any of them will have the balls to ask the difficult conspiratorial knockdown questions because they don't want to hear him give the knockdown. Now we have an hour left. Maybe Lex will do it. I don't think he has yet. But questions of why do you think Putin invaded in 2014. Did NATO ever make, in your historical opinion, did NATO ever make promises to Russia about invading? Do you think the U.S. was involved in Euromaidan? How important, or how much of your country's military is comprised of Nazis? How important was Azov to the formation of your wartime military units? How these are the kinds of questions that he should have a chance to respond to, because these are the main propaganda points that are spread in the West. These are the main propaganda points that are spread in the West. And if we go through a whole interview without him getting a chance to talk about any of it, there's no point in him even doing these interviews. Like random, opining on history or the past or your country. I say random opining. That's incredibly dismissive and rude. I mean, I think it's valuable, but nobody that has these like conspiratorial nonsense talking much to their head is being persuaded by him saying any of these things, because he's just like a Jewish deep state actor, whatever the fuck. Like, I want to hear him being presented with these questions or arguments directly, and then give him a chance to do the knockdowns. I don't think any conservative platform is going to have the balls to ask him any of those questions if he actually has them. It doesn't have to be me, right? It could be anybody else. But these are the things that I want to hear him respond to. But
see, you are the warrior for freedom. In fact, this war is for freedom, for freedom of the individual. So
he's not about to compare martial law to fucking freedom. I'm half expecting to hear him say the fucking First Amendment. How can you possibly be for freedom when you do martial law, when your country's being invaded and fucking destroyed? Like, what?
One of the...
I'm sorry. I don't even know if that's where he's going with that. I'm sorry. I just assumed. My bad.
Difficult decisions you had to make when the war began is to enact martial law.
Do you not think this podcast allows him to put his voice out there in a more nuanced manner? Most Americans don't see him in long format podcast. Might as well be the new mainstream news today nowadays. I feel like it was worth it, even if Lex had absolute dog wank questions and responses. A little bit, but he can have a stronger performance. He can have a stronger interview where he's responding to things that are more relevant to the West. I don't know if the average Ukrainian knows what the aggregate media environment is like in the West. I'm sure they've heard talking points, but I don't know if they know how pervasive some of these just outright fabricated myths and lies are in American media. We just heard Trump, I think, repeat some of them. Just these outright lies and myths are. They might, like, you might go to Ukraine and be like, oh, like, you've heard like the Azov Nazi claim, right? And like, oh yeah, we see that shit on Russia Telegram all the time. And then you ask them, like, what percentage of Americans do you think believe that? And like, I don't know, probably like 1 or 2% or something. And it's like, no, it's like 50%. Like, maybe half the country believes this shit. I don't know if he's aware of that, you know? Serious question. Do you think you have the capacity to make the interview happen on the logistics side? Like coming to Kiev, getting a camera and crew sound there, working under high security? Yeah, of course. What? The logistics part is fucking easy. I saw some dipshit on Twitter be like, there's no way you could get this all coordinated. What? It's an airplane flight. It's 2 lights. 3 cameras would be nice, but 2 lights, 2 cameras, road mics. I've got the drives. It's easy as fuck.
So when you won the presidency, you were the warrior for freedom. In fact, this war is for freedom. For freedom of the individual, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom. But a lot of freedoms had to be curtailed, sacrificed in this fight because there's so much focus on the war. Do you see the tension? Do you feel the tension?
There's no tension there. Like, this question doesn't deserve... He should just say next. This is not a real question. Like, this is not a real question that's being asked right now. This isn't real. Like... This is just not a real question. Like, you said that you want to go and fight the Nazis in World War II, but didn't you force soldiers to fight? How could you possibly say you're on the side of freedom and life when soldiers are being forced to murder other people? Don't you see the tension there? Like, no, this is not a real question.
That the sacrifice that had to be made in democracy, in freedom, in fighting this war.
In any case, this war is for our freedom. Generally speaking, to be honest, when you understand, over time, when the war passes, you understand that your main values are at home. This is your home, your children, your love. God willing, parents are alive.
Wait. If your dentist recommends you to get a root canal due to inflammation around said tooth, almost all dentists will recommend a root canal. Fuck you, get tested more. You don't know if the nerve is dead or not. Just because you have a little bit of inflammation doesn't mean you have to have the fucking root completely drilled out of your fucking tooth. Get it tested if you've got the money for it. Fuck you. I know you're part of Big Dentist, motherfucker. Email me your dental license. This is a dentist. the OP is always going to give you. He's also going to recommend orthodontia to every single fucking kid that walks into his office. That's a Big Dental ADA representative in chat. Mark him.
And if not, you understand that your main values are at home. This is your home, your children, your love. God willing, parents are alive. And if not alive, then their memory visiting their grave. Choosing how to work, how much, preferably choosing where to work. All this is freedom. Freedoms are not just a desire, they are an opportunity. In any case, you are right because war is a limitation of opportunities. In any case, you fight for these opportunities. Your parents and God gave you life, right? You fight for your life. But we need to understand that first there is a war and then martial law is introduced. Martial law is not introduced because someone wanted to. You say, this is not Pinochet, and so on. This is a completely different story. An aggressor came, and according to your legislation, if the border is violated, if there is armed aggression, you have all this written down, long ago written out in legislation. You introduce martial law, and the introduction of martial law everywhere, at all times, means, in any case, a restriction of opportunities. If opportunities are limited, rights and freedoms are restricted, therefore the war itself restricts rights and freedoms. Yes, and you can't do anything about it. We try, honestly, to balance as much as possible.
My fear is getting any interview with you, a hugely progressive cuck in the eyes of maggots, no matter how positive, will do more damage than it could do good. Democrats are already with Ukraine. Trump and his base are who we need to reach. Yeah, but you can't reach, you have to dispel the misinformation. That's what has to happen. You have to fight through the misinformation first, which I think is one of the things that I wish Zelensky had the opportunity to respond to, instead of explaining why martial law, when you're invaded by a fucking superpower, has no tension with freedom. Like we could ask a grade school history teacher this question. We don't need like a world leader who has been thrust into one of the most explosive wars in European history.
We try, honestly, to balance as much as possible. I believe that the business sector works despite the difficulties of the war, and we do everything somewhere, there somewhere to reduce some load. Unfortunately, we cannot reduce taxes. On the contrary, a military tax is used for war. You need to take money somewhere. This, by the way, is about the fact that the US gave us a lot, and Europe too. But compared to how much we needed for the war, this is not all. As for military salaries, you know that we could not pay the salaries of a million-strong army. We could not pay it using the money from our partners. These are all expenses. This is all the money that the country and people have accumulated. You can't do anything. I really want to reduce taxes. I will tell you frankly. I really want to. Well, I think that the whole new tax system, new deregulation, new steps, new reforms, all this.
Do you think conspiratorial right will believe any answer Zelensky may give to any of these questions? Maybe not, but at least somebody would respond to it. I don't hear anybody talk about Ukrainian shit. Nobody even gives a about Ukraine, or didn't seem to for more than a month or whatever after. And all of the scholars, the faux scholars, the fakes like the Mearsheimers or whatever that are all running around taking paychecks from the Kremlin, all the historians seem to back these weird notions of NATO expansionism and Russia feeling threatened on its borders. But there is no center-left establishment that defends the United States or U.S. foreign policy or the safety and security of Europe, because it's all white imperialists who are racist or whatever. So I don't know, like, maybe I've just missed it, but I haven't seen like a strong left-leaning defense of Ukraine from basically anybody, because the people that historically would defend that type of stuff would be Republicans, and the Republicans have lost their moral center or their any righteousness about American foreign policy. So I just haven't seen that as much. Maybe they're out there somewhere. Maybe they have had those conversations, but I don't see it.
This will be after the war. Although there is something to brag about, this is proof. And this is a document, because if you want to get a candidacy for European Union, you must implement the appropriate number of reforms. We do everything. During the war, we voted for many reforms, including anti-corruption, banking reforms, land reforms, major reforms. We started a large privatization, and the war did not stop us. Yes, it slowed down, but we went through a lot.
When do you think you'll hold elections? Because for people who don't know, part of the martial law, elections were suspended, and
these are bullshit ass questions. These are I hope he asks Putin that question. I will take back every bad thing I've ever said about Lex. If Lex is drilling Putin this hard on like, hey, so when are you going to hold elections in your country? Like, like real ones, not where you win like 90+% of the vote. Like, when are you going to, bro, these are bullshit ass questions.
When do you think you'll hold elections? Because for people who don't know, part of the martial law, elections were suspended, and they were delayed and delayed and delayed. And I think the next sort of plan is in February.
I don't even think I think that's already baked into the Ukrainian constitution. Like, that's already part of the rule of the country, is that during times of war, I don't think they hold elections. I don't even think Zelensky had to change anything there.
Of 2025. But when do you think there will be presidential elections in Ukraine?
When the war is over, bro. It's such an inappropriate question. Like, that's so inappropriate.
Elections were postponed once. They were not delayed, to be clear. Elections did not take place in 2024. That year, first of all, we need to understand the Constitution. They were scheduled to be held in the spring of 2024. Due to martial law, under the Constitution, you cannot do this. These are the presidential elections. The parliamentary elections did not take place in the fall of 2024, according to the Constitution. Yes, there are security things. There is the Constitution, but there are security things. That is, everyone in Ukraine understands that this cannot be done until the war is over or legislation needs to be changed. I believe that elections will take place immediately after the end of martial law. This is according to the law. Or members of the parliament need to get together and change legislation, which will be very difficult to do because society is against it. Why is society against it? It is understandable why. Because we want elections that we want to trust. 8.5 million people went abroad. The infrastructure needs to be created for these millions of people to vote. Millions of people in the occupied territories. I'm not even talking about the occupation of 2014. I'm talking about the occupation right now. What to do with these people? This is a difficult question. And one of the most unfair ones is how to vote without having 1 million soldiers. That is, it is impossible. We need to think about how to change the system if the elections are held in times of war, change the legislation, which should include changes to the voting system. To think about online voting. Everyone is afraid because of certain attacks, like cyber attacks.
Like from Russia.
And so on.
Say
but we need to think about it. I really think that it's possible that we can end the war in 2025.
In January.
Oh,
we've already agreed on it.
I would very much like to. I would very much like to.
After the war?
And immediately. Yes, immediately. In the year of the end of the war. It's a fact. Why? Because when martial law ends, you can immediately vote in parliament to hold elections. And then everyone will vote because there are no restrictive measures. And after they vote, I think elections can be held in 90 days, something like that. Yes. And this means that immediately after the end of the war, elections may take place in 90 days.
Are you running for re-election?
Oh my God.
Even I don't know, really. I don't know. It is a very difficult question. It depends on how this war will finish. It depends on what people will want. Mostly, it depends on people. First of all, and of course, my family. We had no time to speak about it with my family.
That's not terrible. No, fuck you. It is terrible. There is a propaganda line that Zelensky is a corrupt authoritarian leader that's just utilizing the war in order to indefinitely push off elections so they can further entrench his power and further enrich himself and his family. That's what these questions are aimed towards. Oh, are you going to run again? Are you going to try to keep being president? Oh, you enacted martial law to delay the elections? When are you going to finally fucking hold them? When are you going to finally fucking have elections again? Oh, and you're going to oh, really? Yeah. Like that's what this line of questioning is for.
And of course, didn't have a chance because we don't think about it now.
But he won't ask them honestly. I wouldn't mind if Lex said, hey, some people accuse you of entrenching yourself and gaining more power, whatever. If he was at least honest about it, but he's phrasing them in the most propaganded way possible.
Something, there are a lot of, not a lot of, but enough voices in Ukraine from politicians, opposition, and etc. about this, yes. But we don't think really seriously, didn't think seriously with my family about it. So this is war. I mean, how to think about what will be after? It's very difficult, really very difficult.
If we look at the field of candidates, maybe you can give your opinion about the set of ideas you see out there, including your own, about the future of Ukraine. As I understand, the candidates include Poroshenko, Zelensky.
Like, you don't even know what the country is going to be in. Well, like, or what's going to be left of the country after the war? How could you even have this? How could you even go down this road? Like, I don't even understand how you could expect him to even have a reasonable answer to any of these things. Like, are they going to have Crimea back? Are they going to have access to? Are they going to have any access to water at all? Are they going to how is Russia going to be sanctioned? What's the relationship going to be like with the EU or Russia? Like, how do you even have this conversation?
Luzhny, Arestovich, Budanov, Klitschko, and many others. This is the internet speaking to me. What do you think of the space of ideas that these candidates represent?
I think it can be, and there can be even a bigger number of candidates. Yeah, I don't really know what will be. They have rights to participate if they want to. Yes, if they really want to and can, they...
Does Zelensky know the questions are snaky? I'm not sure because they're working through like 17 different languages here. And I don't know how aware Zelensky is of how corrupted the Western media environment is with all the Russian propaganda and all of the MAGA propaganda that exists. I just don't know. I don't know without being inundated with that type of media. I don't know.
They can go and do what they want, honestly. Most important is what are they doing now? I think that all these people are the famous Ukrainian people, and it's important for them to do everything they can today, not begin any election campaign. I think this what can divide our people to have the elections, during the war. I mean, this make steps, speak about elections a lot, make a big mess about it. I think this is not right. That's why I'm not agreeing with some of these people, but they can, and I think that they can, and maybe some of them will, and it's okay. It's normal. It's very normal. Our system differs from the system in the United States. You have two parties, and the parties decide who will be the leader. And in Ukraine, everybody can participate. Let them.
You think you're going to win the debate? You versus Zelensky, Poroshenko, or Arestovich, and you decide to run. Do you think you're going to win the debate? Or you're again focused on the war? And
I'm really focusing.
This is what I mean also when I say, like, in the US, like, everything is like a meme to us. Like, we don't even, like, imagine going to like the Gaza Strip and you're talking to like Palestinians like moving between camps and you're like, so do you guys think you're going to vote for Hamas again, or like what's up with that?
On the war, and I think the most difficult debate is what will be brought to the table, and we spoke about it. It will be during the war. How to finish the war. I think that is my goal, because it will be one of my most complicated debates, and for any president who is in a war, of course. But I think this is my goal, to win those debates, and the other things are not for today.
As I said, the dream I have is it's a historic opportunity to make peace, to make lasting peace soon. So I'm glad you're focused on that. Let me ask a question about that a lot of people in the United States think about, and I care a lot about the future of Ukraine, is corruption. This is something you have cared a lot about for a long time. You won the president.
Oh my God, this is such bullshit. I'm so... Israel-Palestine is an easier conflict, in my opinion, because there are horrible actors on both sides, in my opinion. Not in my opinion. Fuck that. That's objective fucking fact. There are horrible actors on both sides of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So I can always feel at least a little good that at least no matter who gets fucked over, at least I know somebody bad is getting fucked over at the end of the day. I feel like Ukraine-Russia is so much harder because like I've gone on before on this, but there's just like, there's so much like nobility in the narrative of an ex-satellite Eastern European country trying to join the European Union, trying to fix all of its corruption problems and all of this. Like, it's so much clearer. And Russia, that is like the bully country, the bad guy country with the bad guy leader who engages in the bad guy tactics. And it's a much, much, much clearer right and wrong in this case. And so to hear somebody just be so insanely biased towards it and to do such a partisan propaganda drive-by hit piece is just so disgusting to me.
The future of Ukraine is corruption. This is something. Remember,
corruption is corruption. I should have just gone back. I don't remember if I pointed all these out before. I'm just so used to hearing them. These are all of the bullshit talking points. Ukraine is super corrupt. Zelensky is super corrupt. They were corrupt before. They're probably going to be corrupt after. They're banning like the Russian language because Zelensky's trying to enrich himself. His wife is buying dresses in New York. They're stealing U.S. money. Remember, all the corruption, the U.S. money is going to Ukraine, and all the companies and the oligarchs are stealing it there and funneling it to Zelensky and all of his oligarchs. Like, all of this is like Russian propaganda talking about. These are all bullshit questions.
You have cared a lot about for a long time. You won the presidency in 2019 in big part your message of fighting corruption. But there's a lot of accusations that during war, I mentioned $9 trillion in the United States, war breeds corruption. So can you speak to that, how you have been fighting corruption, and can you respond to the accusations there has been corruption in Ukraine?
Also, and again, I'm going to be harsh here, okay? Because I'm going to be very harsh here because it's not acceptable for you to even present a broad claim as a question. You've said you've read countless books. I don't think he's read a single one. And you've expertised yourself in that way. And you claim to speak, albeit not that well, at least one language from the region. You claim to have had family from here. And now you are having a conversation with a world leader here who's involved in this conflict. It can't be that the questions sound like they're from Twitter. How do you respond to claims of corruption? Which claim? What corruption? This is a Twitter question. This is a question my mom or dad would ask. This cannot be the case. You've expertised yourself too much here, and this conversation is too current and important. This isn't a retrospective, and this isn't a hypothetical. This is a leader of a country that is currently in war. It can't be this way. This is insane.
You have been fighting corruption, and can you respond to the accusations there has been corruption in Ukraine?
You know, it's very simple. First of all, we really have a very sophisticated anti-corruption system. Sophisticated not in the sense that it's difficult to understand, but in that it really consists of many elements. It's the most sophisticated in all of Europe. This is another requirement of the European Union. It was a requirement for Ukraine. And for many years, Ukraine was not trusted. I want to tell you that under me, we all voted for bills, all the anti-corruption reforms, almost all reforms, and all anti-corruption bodies today are independent. They work as requested. I still believe that they are not perfect yet. There are many issues. There is a judicial system, but also a judicial reform that our partners, the United States plus the EU, demanded from us. This is all written out. This is written out in specific laws, in specific decrees, in specific decisions. We did this. We've done 99% of this. If something has not been done, it means that it is on the way. But in principle, all this exists, and there is no such system as we have in Europe. To say that we do not have corruption would be lying. We just talk about it openly. We are genuinely fighting against it. Look, we have sitting in our prison, Ihor Kolomoisky, who is the most influential Ukrainian oligarch since independence. And no one could do anything about him. The United States of America wanted to have Kolomoisky, and they went to great lengths because of money laundering, etc. There are criminal cases in the United States, I think in Delaware, something like that. Neither Europe could do anything about it. That is, we did a lot with oligarchs. Russian oligarchs, sanctions were imposed. They were thrown out. Some of them fled the state, but they are all under sanctions. We exchanged some of them for our soldiers, such as Medvedchuk, to whose daughter Putin is godfather. That is, we fought against the strongest influential oligarchs, which are and were in Ukraine, and we eliminated a lot of corruption. Of course, corruption exists in everyday life. It exists, but institutionally, I am sure that Ukraine will overcome all this. This takes a little time. I would say honestly that, listen, what we call corruption, and in some state of the world is called lobbyism. But this does not mean that there is no corruption there. Let's take the aid you mentioned during the war. First of all, we have no money. We have no money except for the war. We received weapons from the United States of America, from Europe. If we take, for example, money from the United States of America, during all this time of the war, around 177 billion have been voted for or decided upon. 177 billion. Let's be honest. We have not received half of this money. The second point, which is very important just as an example, is the corruption.
I don't think the translation here is rough. I don't know what he's saying in, I don't know if he's speaking Russian, English, Ukrainian, but like it's not all cash money, right? He could be saying value or worth of whatever, but
around 177 billion have been voted for or decided upon. 177 billion. Let's be honest. We have not received half of this money. The second point, which is very important just as an example, is the corruption. The first question, whose corruption? This is the second. Here is just one small example for you. When the United States began to transfer us weapons, it was American money, but American weapons. Money for these weapons. As a president, I had cargo jets. Not in Ukraine because of the war, we moved them very quickly to Europe. We had cargo. We have good cargo fleet. Very good. Because of Antonov. So I asked American side to grant me the opportunity because our jets are at another, yeah?
I think he's also saying that of that promised cash involved, it's not even given yet. Usually it's promised, maybe because it hasn't been released yet. That's
airfield.
Possible, yeah.
And I asked America to give me the opportunity to use our jets for transfer, not to pay a lot. To whom? To your companies, to American companies. No, I didn't get this opportunity. My jets stayed put. And the United States jets, cargo jets, move these weapons. But everywhere you have to spend money. So we could get more weapons, but we have to pay for this very expensive fleet. My question, is this corruption or not? Or lobbyism? What is it?
You mean corruption on the part of the U.S. companies?
Yes, making such decisions.
Yes, I got it.
The lobbying for such decisions involves some companies that make these decisions. But I can't be open about it, and I couldn't speak loudly about it. I didn't want, nor did I intend to cause any scandals to arise, because otherwise you can freeze the support, and that's it. And that's why when we talk about corruption, we must ask, who is involved? If we had 177, and if we get the half, where is the half? If you will find the second half, you will find corruption.
My guess is when it comes to the release of congressional aid or whatever, it probably happens in stages and it's not all made available immediately is my guess. One of the things is also like super mindfucky here that you have to imagine is that like the president that's taking over in the White House in Washington is the same guy that tried to extort you a few years ago in order to get you to lie about investigations into his political opponent's son. That's also like a whole macro layer that's being like Zelensky has a lot of ground to make up because Trump and Giuliani were begging him to engage in like political malfeasance basically in order to get him to win the 2020 election.
It's a perception of corruption. People like Donald Trump and Elon Musk really care about fighting corruption. What can you say to them to gain their trust that the money is going towards this fight for freedom, towards the war effort? People like Donald Trump and Elon Musk really care about fighting corruption.
Why? Who the fuck is Elon Musk? Why the fuck are we even bringing him?
If you will find the second half, you will find corruption.
There is a perception of corruption. People like Donald Trump and Elon Musk really care about fighting corruption. What can you say to them to gain their trust that the money is going towards this fight for freedom, towards the war effort?
In most cases, we did not receive money, we received weapons. And where we saw risks that something could be a weapon, we would slap everyone on the wrist. And believe me, this is not only about Ukraine. On the supply...
This is a better question. These are propaganda points that are being brought up. It's good now.
Chain.
But I hate the general paradigm of this conversation.
Everywhere. There are some or other people and companies who want to make money because everyone makes money on the war. We did not profit from the war. If we found someone, believe me, we slapped everyone on the wrist. And we did that. We did that. And we will continue to do so because to this day, when someone says that Ukraine was selling weapons, and by the way, Russia was the one pushing this narrative, we always responded. Our soldiers would kill such people with their own hands without any trial. Do you honestly think...
It's not slap on the wrist, it's smack the hands with the stick. Okay. Doesn't Elon Musk occupy an important position as an advisor in Trump's administration? Whether you like him or not, he's become important politically. But yeah, but glazing him here unnecessarily serves no purpose. There's no reason to even say that here. And there's no reason for him to have a position on the incoming American administration. It's just inappropriate for the purposes of this interview. Unless you want to present, at least when you, or at the very least, you know what, honestly, I'd be happier with these guys if you could at least just please just drop the bullshit centrist act. And just, if you just present yourselves as like full MAGA, just do that. And I would at least be a little bit better with it. But the whole center has been so corrupted by all of these Trump suckers who are just so relentlessly, I'm just like, I'm in the middle, man. I'm just like independent. Oh, really? How many middle and independent people said that they supported fucking Kamala or Biden? Zero. Just like own it.
Anyone could steal weapons by the truckload when we ourselves don't have enough on the front lines. And yet we have to provide proof to defend ourselves. Because when there's an abundance...
I'm not mad at you, Abba. Sorry, I love you.
Of such misinformation, distrust starts to grow. And you're right. People listen to various media outlets, see this, and lose faith in you. In the end, you lose trust. And with it, you lose support. Therefore, believe me, we are fighting more against disinformation than against particular cases. Although I still emphasize once again, at the everyday level, such things are still important. We catch these people and we fight them.
I mentioned Elon Musk. I would be interested to hear what you think of him.
Am I brain rotted for thinking Lex is not doing a good job, but I'm not seeing the MAGA malice that Destiny seems to be seeing in his questions? I think he might be kind of dumb. It's kind of dumb when you make mistakes and you fuck up 50-50 chance on each question. But when you consistently just happen to not know and you're making the same mistake and you always are favoring one side over and over and over and over and over and over again, it's not a mistake at that point. It's just propaganda and it's intentional.
I respect him as a person, as an engineer, as an innovator, as a businessman. I would just like to hear from you. What do you think about Elon Musk?
First of all, I had a conversation with him at the beginning of the war. I talked with him. I respect him, first and foremost. I respect the self-made man, right? In English, yes. I love such people. You know, no one and nothing fell into their lap, but the man did something, did it all himself. I worked myself, created a big production company, and I know what it means to make money, to select talented people, to impart knowledge to them, to invest money, and to create something important for certain people, you know. And I'm not comparing myself to Musk. The man is a great leader of innovations in the world. And I believe that such people move the world forward. Therefore, I respect the result of his work. And we see this result. And for me, it has always been important that your result can be used, that these are not words.
Maybe I'm unaware, but Destiny, I feel like you've said that MAGA isn't representative of conservative values. We are in the age of anti-establishment. Centrists identify with Trump, but not the right. The problem is that like people want to have their cake and eat it too. When I say that MAGA isn't representative of conservative values, what I'm really saying is that MAGA is not representative of the values that conservatives have said for a long time that they've had. That's the issue. And then there's even like current contradictions, but that's a little bit different. Like when they say, for instance, we want to get rid of corruption and billionaires, or we want to get rid of like corruption and like lobbying or business interests or whatever, it seems like they don't care as long as it's in the favor of their political guise. When you say centrists identify with Trump but not the right, I disagree. I disagree. I emotionally, it doesn't feel that way. Like if it was more like, who do you think you would support? And they were like, oh man, like it's really hard, and I don't know. But like it's a pretty full on like, yeah, I think Trump is the guy. Like Trump's gonna do it, and he's fucking hilarious, and his memes on Twitter are funny, and like, yeah, maybe he can be mean someday. Like it's the support is just so there, and I just don't hear any criticism. Like I have more criticism as a solidly establishment Dem who supports the candidates. I have far more criticism for Biden or Kamala than any supposedly nonpartisan centrist does for Donald Trump. How is that possible? That doesn't make any sense.
But facts. Let's take the war. We are very grateful for Starlink. It has helped. We used it after Russian missile attacks on the energy infrastructure. There were problems with the internet, etc., with connection. We used Starlink both at the front and in kindergartens. It was used in schools. It helped children. We used it in various infrastructure. And
if you were Zelensky, would you have the foresight not to shit on Trump during election season, or would you have completely dropped the ball in that regard? No, what? Of course, you're always glazing the next American leader. This is how foreign politics goes. Everybody knows this. Palestinians and Israelis knew it. I imagine people in Ukraine, I think pretty sure everybody in the world knows that it's important to curry favor if you're in the West to curry favor with whoever the next American leader is going to be, right?
And in kindergartens, it was used in schools. It helped children. We used it in various infrastructure.
I've never heard Destiny criticize Biden or Harris. Okay.
And it helped us very much. And I would very much like Elon to be on our side as much as possible to support us. And yes, I'm grateful to him for Starlink. Truly I am. First of all, so that our guys have a connection, and children too. And I am really grateful to him for that. I would like him to come to Ukraine, to talk to people here, and to look around, and so on.
Has Elon visited Kiev or Ukraine yet?
No.
I hope the Kiev airport will open soon. Then it will be easier to fly in.
Yes, I am looking forward to it. Maybe we will open it, but only, and you must understand.
Does he, like, is it just closed because Zelensky's a f***ing asshole?
It will be easier to fly in.
Yes, I am looking forward to it. Maybe we will open it, but only, and you must understand if the war is over, there must be sustainable peace and air defense systems, to be honest. And we must ensure that they are long-lasting and effective. Let's take the airport, for example, and let's focus on the airport in Rzeszów, which you know very well as it is handling important cargo for Ukraine in Poland. And there are Patriot systems there because everyone understands what the risk is. Well, Russia is a risk, and therefore we need air defense systems. And today take, for example, the air defense system of one city or another that is being shelled and move it to the airport. Well, that would be dishonest. People are more important than planes. But there will be a moment, and Trump, by the way, I think that the war will end, and President Trump may be the first leader to travel here by airplane. I think it would be symbolic by airplane.
Again, January 25th, around that date, right? Flying in, meeting the Air Force One.
That would be cool.
Elon Musk. I will meet you there for the second time too, on the plane.
With pleasure.
And you, by the way, before I forget, let me ask, are you coming on January 20th for President Trump's inauguration?
I would like to, of course. I will be considering what is happening then in the war, because there are moments of difficulties, escalation, many missiles, etc. But honestly, well, I can't come.
Why does he keep pushing the January peace shit? Because January peace is just like, it's the ultimate MAGA victory. Trump gets to say he solved the war, even though he did no such thing in his prior administration and let it continue to go to shit under his prior administration, right? Trump gets to say he solved the war. Putin gets to finally disconnect from all of the bullshit going on in Ukraine. Ideally, Russia's economy can begin to recover because sanctions and everything are lifted. European energy or whatever would probably get cheaper. Ukraine would be stripped of whatever territories Trump and Putin decide they get to chop up and give to Putin afterwards. It's just like peace as soon as possible is just a total and complete and utter victory in every single sense of the word for Donald Trump and for Vladimir Putin. So that's the sooner the better.
Especially during the war, unless President Trump invites me personally. I'm not sure it's proper to come because I know that in general leaders are, for some reason, not usually invited to the inauguration of presidents of the United States.
Does Lex even like Trump? Well, it's not so much that he's a huge fan of Trump, to be fair. The issue is that like you really, really, really have to consider, and I definitely understand if you're Europeans, you might not have these issues as much in the United States, but you really have to consider how unbelievably traumatizing it is that you might go into a bathroom and a trans person is in there.
States of America. Well, and I know that there are leaders who can simply come, want to come, and will come. Yeah, I know. And I know the temperament of some of these people. They can come at their discretion. This is very, very difficult for me. I am the kind of person that cannot come without an invitation. This is Putin. We did not invite him. He came to us, so to say. And me? I can't do that.
No, but didn't he publicly say that? It would be great if you came to the inauguration. Or you mean, did he invite it officially?
No, wait, look. Listen, I am against any bureaucracy. I get rid of it as much as I can. But, well, you know, there are some complexities involving security. I decide and I fly. And the United States of America officially provides security. Not that I need this, mind you. I do not ask for helicopters to fly around and protect me, but they will simply do it themselves. The security service itself. They had to do it. I don't want it. And sometimes I don't need it. And I'm asking them. It was, for example, before the war. I think, yes, it was before the war. I had a meeting, yes, with President Trump. It was in 2019. I just wanted to go for a run early in the morning because I really wanted to exercise. And those tall bodyguards, a lot of them, they decided to join me, but I couldn't really do it because they were in suits and I was in sportswear. I said, no, I can't. It's always funny. I don't want to, I don't want to disturb anybody and cause anyone problems with me. And that's why if he will invite me, I will come.
I thought he invited you.
Yeah?
Yeah, I thought he publicly invited you. But okay, I hope to see you there.
I think they had to do some of their steps. I don't know, but...
Step. Yeah. The stamp was missing.
Yeah, but with pleasure with my wife, of course. And I think it's important. It's important.
All right, let's get back to a serious question. Sometimes they say it in America, this question of who is really in power. So let me ask.
No, he's not. No, he's not about to ask that. No shot. It's going to be something different. He's not going to ask him who's really controlling Ukraine or anything like that. There's no way he's going to ask a question like that. This is not about to happen. It's a troll. That's a troll. This is a lead into another question. And I paused it way too early. Sorry, hold on.
To a serious question. Sometimes they say it in America, this question of who is really in power. So let me ask, is someone controlling you? For example, oligarchs, American politicians, Yermak. I wanted to bring this up because I have been here in Ukraine twice since the invasion of 2022. And one of the things I've learned is that actually nobody controls you. And this is one of your strengths as a president, as a person, that oligarchs and other rich and powerful people like that cannot control you. Can you explain why that is, how you see it?
I think, and it is indeed true, that I'm generally difficult to deal with. I am an ambitious person. I can't submit to anyone. I can live by rules, by laws. I believe that this is the only thing that can control any person today. These are the rules and laws of the society or state where you live. And I believe that this is the most important thing. There's no person who could control me. As I once told President Trump, when we had a meeting, by the way, journalists asked if Trump influenced me during the phone call. I told the journalists the truth then. Who can influence me? Only my boy, my son. This is a fact. When he calls asking for something, well, then I lift up my arms. Yes. And I cannot do anything about it because children are children. I have so
That feel when new conspiracy theory starts that his son is being controlled by the Jews.
little time with them. And therefore, when there are these moments, they are precious and important to me. I am ready to do anything. Also, probably my parents, they are an authority for me. Beyond that, I view it more as a system. No one can control the president. Therefore, we have oligarchs who either fled or are in prison because oligarchs usually control cash flows and people and influence politics. And we have concrete examples. With sentences, they are not just under house arrest. Not just that, there are some judgments under which their assets were frozen or sanctions were imposed. There are specific people who are behind bars. I think this is the answer regarding the influence. Would they like to influence me in the same way as any president of Ukraine? Because finance and cash flows always influence politics. Well, at least they want to do this. This is regarding the influence. And other people on the vertical, they perform tasks as my managers. Andriy, you mentioned, is one of those managers. Well, I am glad that I have such people. Well, probably there's nothing else to add here.
I will just say that your team that I spoke with is an excellent team, excellent people.
Thank you.
Okay, one last question. The future of Ukraine. If you look 5, 10, 20 years into the future, what can help Ukraine flourish economically, culturally, politically in the future?
Digital, it's very important. Digitalization of all the process. We began this work. We have Special Ministry of Digital Transformation.
Right.
Yeah. So this is very good. And we also have our DIA. This is the name for all of these services. Yeah. So I think that is the most important. This is, again, this is not only convenient, that will cancel any possibilities for future corruption, because you don't have any, you don't have any personal connections with people in the government or elsewhere. So you're just on your phone or any other device. That's it. And I think we are doing very well. We are the best in Europe. All of Europe recognizes it. Some countries of the African Union asked us to provide the same service, and we will do it after the war immediately. And I think that we can bring money to Ukraine from this. And I think what we also need, we need a tax reform. I think it will be very important for the businesses to return. A lot of support will come, I think, from USA business investment, not as direct aid to us, just to the private sector and resources. And I mentioned this to President Trump and to some European leaders who are our key strategic partners, that will be happy, especially with the Americans, will be happy to sign these contracts and engage in joint investments in many areas. And I think we can develop oil, gas, green energy, including solar power.
When do you think the war will end? It depends on what Trump's attention is set to, and who's whispering in Trump's ears, basically, after inauguration.
And we already have the resources. We can invest money into this. We have oil reserves in the Black Sea that we can exploit. And we need your expertise and the investment of your companies. We have gold and uranium reserves, the largest in Europe, by the way, which is also very important. For example, Russia has pushed France out of Africa. They urgently need uranium, which we have. So we are ready to open up for investments. And this will give us, of course, opportunities, jobs for people, revenue. I don't want cheap labor, honestly. What I truly want, especially after the war, to open up for those people who can really contribute and earn. Yes.
And give a reason to the 8 million people to come back.
Yes. It's so important. And they will come, and we will recover and rebuild Ukraine. We will be very open to companies. And of course, we will welcome our people back. It's so important culturally. I think the most important thing is to remain open and not change our direction. Because culturally, aligning with Russia, it's one idea, while aligning with Europe is another. Our people have chosen Europe. It's their choice. It's our choice, the choice of our nation. And I think it's very important.
But first, you have to end the war.
Yes, you're right. And we will. We want peace, I mean,
I actually didn't consider this at all. I wonder if there's some kind of geostrategic objective that revolves around territory that goes back to Ukraine or doesn't, based upon who lives there now. Because you got to imagine, any territory that Ukraine loses is going to be more Russian leaning anyway, because it's in the east regardless. Is the Ukraine that's left after whatever Russia's allowed to take from it, is that Ukraine going to be even more insanely anti-Russian because of the types of citizens that have been taken by Russia? Or I wonder what the population transfer, whatever, would even work like. I have no idea.
Just to make it clear, we want peace. Just what I always say. You have to come to Ukraine and see for yourself. And people will tell you, no, we can't forgive those murderers who took our lives. But we still want to make peace. And honestly, I think that the highest approval rating of the President of the United States, of Trump, now is in Ukraine. People really believe that he can truly help bring peace. Now they have faith that he can make it happen, that he can support Ukraine, and he can stop Putin, and that he will make sure Putin doesn't get everything he wants. This is very important, and it's why we believe that we must not lose this opportunity.
I hope you find the path to peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for talking.
Thank you for coming.
Спасибо. Дякую за
Дякую. Yeah, you started. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this conversation with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky.